Mushoku Tensei Vol16 by Rifujin Namagonate, cast by Artale Studio. If you are interested in creating your own audio drama like this, please visit artale.ai and use promotion code ARTALE to activate your account. Now, enjoy the story. Chapter 1, The First Mission. Let me briefly summarize everything that's happened so far. After discovering the man god had been deceiving me this entire time, I hit rock bottom. A series of events followed, culminating in a face-off between me and Orsted, which ultimately resulted in me becoming his subordinate. That's right, I found myself an employer. As if that weren't shocking enough, I also reunited with Eris and married her. It's like the warm rays of spring sunlight are pouring over me. As if my life has hit its peak. Spring was the season of new beginnings, and with my marriage to Eris, I was bursting with renewed vigor. It might be summer right now, but it was still spring in my heart of hearts. I was floating on cloud 9 as I headed in to my workplace, being where Orsted currently resided. This time I was alone, as a man is supposed to be when he commutes. To be fair, it was pretty normal in our household for the women to work too, so there was nothing wrong with bringing someone along. But Orsted's curse meant they'd just feel hostile toward him, so it was best for me to make the trip by myself. As I arrived at the cottage, I spotted someone collapsed on the ground. Who in the world would keel over here? Huh? Zenoba. It's Zenoba. He's dead. He was slumped against a 3-meter-tall hunk of metal lying on his back. This can't be happening. Come on, this can't be real. Zenoba, speak to me. There was a pulse. His pupils were moving, and he was breathing. His body was still warm, too. Okay, yes, he was definitely still alive. Guess I jumped to the wrong conclusion. He's not dead. He was only sleeping. You had me scared to death. Scared enough I'd almost shouted Jesus at the top of my lungs. Anyway, what was he doing sleeping here? He was royalty. Shouldn't he be in a nice soft bed or something? He was too old to be slumming it out here. As I breathed a sigh of relief, the door to the cottage cracked open and Orsted stepped out.
Rudeus, so you've arrived.
Oh, yes, I have. He stared at us.
Last night, Zenoba Shirone carried that thing here.
What thing?
That armor you used earlier in battle.
He gazed at the lump of metal Zenoba was leaning against. Upon closer inspection, I realized it was indeed my magic armor. I hadn't recognized it because it was in pieces. Come to think of it, I'd mentioned that it was destroyed in battle and that I'd left it behind as well as needing to go retrieve it soon. And you two happened to run into each other in the process, and you fought?
Indeed.
Zenoba had probably never dreamed Orsted would be here, of all places. I should have told him earlier, but just hadn't had the chance. It didn't look like he had any real injuries, at least. Orsted must have gone easy on him.
At the end of our battle, he swore he wouldn't let me get my hands on this armor. Said he had to make sure to deliver it to you. That's why he crawled the rest of the way to it. He certainly has taken a liking to you.
Oh, Zenoba! I immediately leaned over him and used my healing magic. Since he had no external injuries, it wasn't much good, but I wanted him to sleep peacefully, at least. Actually, now that I think about it, Orsted just left him out here in the open after he collapsed? Maybe he's more merciless than I gave him credit for? So he will wake up eventually, right?
I put him to sleep using hypnosis magic passed down through the Nuka tribe. He should awaken in a few hours.
So that's what he used on Zenoba. I wonder exactly what kind of magic that is. Very intriguing. Could this hypnosis magic also allow the user to manipulate a person's actions? Like if I used it on Sylphie and commanded her to lift up her skirt, would she do it? I don't need hypnosis magic for that, though. She'd do it if I asked. In fact, if that was what I wanted, I needed to get her a skirt. A mini skirt would be best. One of those frilly, fairy-like ones would suit her best, surely. Besides, if hypnosis magic was that powerful, Orsted would probably be using it a lot more. Putting someone to sleep was probably the extent of its usefulness.
come inside. Let's resume our discussion from yesterday.
He disappeared back into the cottage. I slipped off my jacket and draped it over Zenoba. Then I used my magic to conjure an earthen roof to protect him before following after Orsted. Once I was finished here, I would collect Zenoba and take him back to Ginger.
Allow me to cut to the chase.
He took my diary from his pocket and slapped it down on the table between us.
Quite a fascinating read. I have some interest in this magic regarding time travel that your future self spoke of, but since we lack the information to duplicate it ourselves, we'll leave that aside for now.
All right.
There were a number of things that caught my interest, but before we discuss the contents of this journal, I would like to know what you and the man-god have spoken about in the past. Tell me everything. Spare no details.
Yes, of course. I recounted everything I could remember. Our first encounter happened immediately after the displacement incident. After that, I saw him again in Rikarasu City, then in Windport, Eastport, and then right after Orsted nearly killed me. Following that, I saw him again when I enrolled in the Magic Academy, then right before I went to Bigaret, then immediately before my future self came to visit, and again immediately after. We also met while I was preparing to face off with Orsted. 10 times in total. I gave Orsted as much detail as I could remember from each conversation, including what the man-god commanded me to do and how his instructions played out. After the displacement incident, he'd told me to rely on Royard. I became an adventurer as a result. In Rikarisu City, he instructed me to take on a request to search for someone's lost pet. That led me to becoming acquainted with Jalil and Vizquel, and ended with us being driven from the city. In Windport, he told me to carry some food and traverse the back alleys. That was how I found the great empress of the demon world and received one of her demon eyes. In Eastport, he showed me a premonition and ordered me to go to Chiron. There, I met Zenoba and saved Aisha and Lilia. He gave me no real advice following the incident where Orsted nearly killed me. However, he told me to enroll in the academy and look into the displacement incident. Thanks to that, I was reunited with Sylphie and the two of us got married. The man-god had warned me not to go to Bigaret. I ignored him, which led to Paul's death, and Zenith becoming a mostly empty husk, but at least it wasn't all negative. I did get married to Roxy as a result. Though the man-god claimed that Paul would have lived if I hadn't gone. The man-god spoke with me again prior to my future self coming to visit and told me to check on my basement. The moment I got out of my chair to follow his advice, my future self appeared and told me everything that was about to happen. And, as he warned, there was indeed a rat down there. After I dealt with all that, the man-god reappeared displeased. That was when he told me to kill Orsted. With no other option to protect my family, I obeyed and began to prepare for our battle. It was during that process that he visited again to give me all sorts of advice. It was thanks to him that we'd managed to finish the magic armor this quickly. Orsted listened quietly as I spoke. He didn't even bother grunting or nodding, nor did he voice any questions. He stayed completely silent until I was finished. That's all. Did you get anything from all of that?
Yes, I now understand exactly how he was using you.
Oh, seriously? Well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised this is Orsted I'm talking to.
He used you to change the course of history.
History, you say?
Yes. Ordinarily, the hand of fate is so strong that certain things should be immutable, but he found a way to circumvent that using you.
Wow. So my destiny is so powerful, it can change the course of history? But, Sir Orsted, surely you could do the same thing if you wanted to.
I could, but I failed to see his goal in altering history this much.
Isn't it to avoid being killed?
Don't take his words at face value.
Ah, right. Guess there is a possibility he was lying about all that.
At any rate, there is one thing I do know for certain.
What's that?
Whatever lies at the end of this altered course of history is something that stands to benefit him.
Makes sense.
In order to direct the future toward a course more beneficial to me, you will alter its current trajectory.
He wants me to alter it, not correct it, huh? Guess that makes sense. Strictly speaking, it's not history yet, since it technically hasn't happened. History is whatever you make it, being in the past. You're being awfully roundabout.
I am already laying plans for 100 years into the future. Everything that has happened so far and that will happen from here is all groundwork. But thanks to you and Nanahoshi, much of it has gone off track.
100 years into the future? Well, I guess he's been setting things up for a while, so he can't really change his plans now. Just to clarify, the two of us can't just go wherever the man god is and kick his butt, I guess?
Until we have collected the hidden treasures, we won't be able to reach the place he's in.
And I'm guessing we can't just gather them up real quick?
4 are easy to obtain, but Laplace holds the final piece. He won't revive for another 80 years. I will be the one gathering these treasures. You had best not act on your own, understood?
Act on my own? I had no idea where these treasures were located to begin with. My diary did mention that they were held by the 5 dragon generals, but I only knew the whereabouts of one, Perugius. Wait a sec? Chaos, the manacled dragon king, is dead, right? Isn't that a bit of a problem? I heard that Lord Chaos has passed away. How are you going to deal with that?
I have already acquired the treasure he held.
Oh, okay. So he's already dealt with that. But hold up. What if the man god has already foreseen that I'll try to change the future? I mean, what if I'll just be digging our graves by taking action? Or mine, at the very least?
No. In addition to his powers of foresight, I believe it's also highly likely he has a special trait that makes all the living creatures of this world trust him unconditionally. That has left him ill-equipped to deal with irregularities.
Huh, I never realized. I guess you could say the man god has a curse of his own. Hold on. Saying people trusted him unconditionally was a stretch. I never trusted him, for one. But then again, Orsted's curse doesn't work on me. Maybe that means the man god's curse doesn't either. It did feel like he had a hard time trying to deal with me and my constant skepticism. Although I did end up trusting him in the end, perhaps his curse wasn't entirely ineffective after all. And who knows, my resistance to Orsted's curse might wear off eventually and I'd start fearing him too. No, there's no guarantee Orsted's information is reliable. His assumptions about the nature of the man god's curse might not be entirely correct. As soon as I started contemplating that possibility, I started doubting everything. Best just to drop this whole thing, I decided. I'm not good at the whole guessing what my opponent has planned thing. Do you really think we can win this?
I do. Our enemy isn't invincible. I am only one step away from ending him.
It sounded like he was reassuring himself instead of me. Either way, he was intent on winning. He was determined to claim victory in the end, even if we were the underdogs along the way. That part, I did find promising.
So, we will change the course of the near future.
The near future?
Yes. We will make second Princess Ariel Anemoy Asura the king of the Asura Kingdom.
Okay. So we were going to throw our weight behind her then? Awesome. I'd actually been thinking about how I wanted to help her out. If this was my first mission, it was a welcome one. I made a good call taking a job at this company.
Depending on the circumstances, I can use her as a puppet.
A puppet? Well, that certainly sounded a bit ominous. Rather than backing her, it seemed like we'd be pulling her strings. Yep, definitely more than a bit ominous. Guess the company I signed up for is actually super shady. I have to wonder if someone like Princess Ariel would really be so easily manipulated.
I say puppet, but I won't do something as extreme as manipulating her. As long as we can establish ties to Asura Kingdom in the future, that will be enough.
All right then. He was probably thinking 100 years into the future. Each small step we took would add up, altering the course of history in the process. As a result, the world would be very different in another century. For instance, we could persuade the princess to focus more on magical research or strengthening the military. We could even lay the groundwork necessary to erode the entire kingdom if we wanted. Are you sure it's okay to do that?
Of course, the history as I know it had Ariel as king to begin with.
Oh? I would love to hear more about this history if you don't mind.
Very well. Originally, Ariel Anamoy Asura was to become king. Her course was protected by a strong destiny, as if it were predetermined.
A bit difficult for me to believe that, seeing the way she is now.
I am sure that's true.
Ariel's position had only worsened lately. From where I was standing, it seemed very likely that she would completely strike out with Perugius. That was why Sylphie was constantly busy running here, there, and everywhere. They were trying their best, but it was an uphill battle.
In order for her to become king, Ariel requires the backing of 3 people. The first among them is the guardian mage Derek Redbat.
As I recalled, that was the name of the man who'd served as Ariel's bodyguard before Sylphie. I was pretty sure he'd passed away during the displacement incident.
Derek was highly intelligent and ambitious, too. Even without the displacement incident, Ariel was destined to someday meet Perugius, and it was Derek who convinced Perugius to join her side.
So, basically, if Derek were alive, she wouldn't be in the terrible position she is now.
Derek continued to counsel her after that, eventually leading to him taking up the position of Prime Minister.
Prime Minister? Huh? Well, now, that is a pretty important position. And you're saying the displacement incident claimed the life of someone so pivotal?
Indeed, he was supposed to be protected by his own strong destiny, but he died.
Which meant that one's destiny wasn't absolute. I supposedly had fate on my side protecting me from death as well, but if Derek's bloody end was any indication, I'd better not let it go to my head. So what you're trying to say is, we have to find someone to replace him, right?
No. If we are to make her our puppet, a prime minister would only get in our way. We don't need that.
Are you sure she'll be able to run the country without one?
Coming to the magic city of Sharia helped her grow and change as a person. It won't be an issue.
If you say so, I was afraid it'd come back to bite us in the butt if we played too fast and loose. At least he wasn't telling me to take over and become prime minister. I was no brainiac like Derek.
The other key person is Eris Boreas Greyrat.
Eris? My eyes widened. What did she have to do with any of this? Sure, she was part of the Asura nobility, but she had no connection to Ariel as far as I knew.
Originally, the Asuran Guard selected her for her skill with the sword. She joined their ranks, which was how she met Luke. The two were supposed to marry.
Something twinged in my chest. I can't really picture the two of them marrying.
It was love at first sight for him.
Seriously? What was Luke supposed to be? The descendant of some hero or something? Although I could totally see him falling for Eris. She had a beautiful face and huge breasts. I couldn't fault anyone for being deceived by her appearance.
No matter how many times she punched him, he continued to pursue her, and that softened her heart. After the two married, they were extremely affectionate with one another.
An affectionate couple, huh? Well, it is true that once you wiggle your way into her heart, she does start to show her cuter side. But this whole conversation makes me feel like I got cuckolded somehow. That does it. When I get back home, I'll have to sneak up on Eris from behind and grope her. I'm sure she'll punch me for it, but that's a price I'm willing to pay. If it means getting to touch her chest, I'm fine with being her punching bag.
Well, it's a tale I am sure you find no humor in.
To be honest, no, I don't.
Very well, I'll keep my summary brief then.
I couldn't care less how history might have played out differently. In this timeline, Luke and Eris weren't together. I'm the only one our fair lady deigns to bestow her affection on. Lady Eris belongs to me and me alone.
The Eris Boreas Greyrat I knew was a skilled swordsman, though less so than her current self, but she still eventually reached the rank of saint. Despite her beautiful appearance and impressive status, her fiery personality earned her the epithet Red Lion.
Red Lion, huh? A long time ago, people had likened her to a wild ape. A lion was a huge step up in comparison. Currently, she was known as the Mad Dog. Guess she's still a beast in the end.
Eris and Luke worked together to shield Ariel from assassination numerous times, protecting her on her path to kinghood.
In other words, Sylphie's assumed the role that was originally supposed to be Eris's.
Correct.
What happened to Sylphie in this alternate timeline? While I knew it likely had nothing to do with the main topic, I couldn't help asking.
Sylphiette became Roxy McGurdia's apprentice and later went on to become an adventurer. People tended to hate her for her green hair, but in the end she conquered several notable labyrinths and made a name for herself as one of the world's foremost dungeon explorers.
Wow! Impressive, Sylphie. I would expect no less from my wife. I'd have to give her ear a good tonguing once I got home. And? Who did she end up hooking up with?
I am not having this conversation with you simply to satisfy your curiosity.
Oops. Sorry about that. My shoulders slumped.
As far as I know, neither Sylphiette nor Roxy Nigardia married anyone. They lived out the entirety of their lives as single women.
Interesting. Thank you for telling me. Huh, so that's how things went. Roxy and Sylphie never got with anyone else. Guess that means the two of them really do belong to me and me alone. That really warms my heart, especially after hearing about how Eris married Luke. Guess this is what they mean when they talk about a guy being possessive. Those two girls are mine. I won't let anyone else have them.
Would you like to hear about the rest of your family as well?
No, let's return to the topic. As much as I wanted to ask, the timeline he spoke of was one in which I never existed. Knowing what happened there would change nothing about the present. It was better to stick to necessary information. I'd heard enough to sate my curiosity. Okay, so since Sylphie has taken over Eris's position, there's no problem there, right?
Indeed, the fact that Ariel is still alive is proof of that. Although having Eris by her side also meant that Ariel had the support of Philip Barrius Greyrat and Saros Barrius Greyrat.
They were also casualties of the displacement incident. Their absence made our situation even more dire. Okay, but you said there were 3 people. Who is the last one?
Tristina Purple Horse.
Tristina Purpa. What? That certainly wasn't a name I'd heard before.
She is the daughter of high-ranking nobility, the House of Purple Horse. She was kidnapped when she was 8. High Minister Darius Silvaganius has been keeping her as his sex slave.
That name rang a bell. If I remembered right, he was enjoying increased support and momentum in the kingdom right now. I was pretty sure he was throwing his weight behind the first prince. But an 8-year-old sex slave, huh? What a creep.
Tristina was going to be secretly disposed of, but fortunately, Ariel happened to save her. Even with his status, Darius could not escape reproach for having confined a daughter of the Purple Horse House for years. He lost his position as a result of the scandal, which also marked the downfall of First Prince Grable.
So the first prince's name is Grable. Okay, got it! Okay, so where is this Tristina person in this timeline?
Missing.
And you're sure she's not dead?
I am not. Darius has a habit of immediately scouring everything around him whenever an incident occurs. That includes disposing of slaves, so there's a high probability she's already dead.
In that case, I guess we're better off assuming she's no longer among us.
Well, the one who trains and oversees these slaves for Darius typically sells off any that are marked for disposal in order to profit from them. Assuming the same happened to Tristina, she is likely still a slave, just with a new master. Or perhaps if she's still young enough, she's learned enough skills to become a thief on the streets. This female thief named Triss, who was mentioned in your journal, comes to mind.
Triss, that's right, there was a female thief who helped my future self sneak into Asura Kingdom. There weren't very many details about her, though. Yeah, but the name Triss isn't exactly rare in Asura. Asurans seem to have a preoccupation with names that had Riss in them, whether it was Eris or Triss.
True, but as far as I know, there were no female thieves named Triss in that area. Plus, Tristina has a number of unique features that match up with the woman described in your diary.
Ah, that makes sense. Since Orsted knew what the timeline was originally supposed to be, he naturally took note when someone out of place appeared in my journal, and with a similar name to boot. Perhaps they really were the same person. But would someone named Tristina really shorten her name to Triss? I was getting Spirited Away vibes from this.
Okay, so you're saying that as long as we get our hands on her, we can take down the High Minister.
Yes, because she's a living witness to his crimes.
In other words, if we were going to have any success in making Ariel king, we needed to find this Triss person.
Why doesn't she just go back home?
The kidnapping was a cover story. In truth, her family sold her off.
So even though her family purposefully sold her, you still think the news that she was kept as a sex slave would make Darius lose his position?
I do. As far as the public knows, she really was kidnapped. Besides, the truth is merely a pretense for taking Darius down.
I get it. Darius had a number of enemies, and they didn't care about the details of his scandal. All they wanted was an excuse to get rid of him. As long as they could tell the public that he'd forcefully abducted a high-ranking aristocrat's daughter, that would be enough to strip him of his status. Ugh, this country is a huge pain in the butt.
Agreed. However, it is precisely because such devious people reside there that Asura holds the most power in the world. It would be that way even if the land they lived on wasn't so plentiful.
That made sense. In my estimation, those who quarreled among themselves like that tended to develop better negotiation skills, which benefited them when the need for diplomacy arose. But maybe my views were a bit biased.
Regardless, we'll be able to remove High Minister Darius so long as we have Tristina. With him gone, we won't have any trouble with the rest of the opposition.
Is he really that powerful of a figure?
He is. It's no exaggeration to say that the current king could not hold on to his throne without Darius.
Wow, he's that important? Guess he's like a kingmaker. Someone who gathers up gold and lays down all the groundwork.
If Ariel somehow fails to have him removed from his current office, then it will be up to you to kill him.
What? You want me to do it?
Yes, you have a strong destiny of your own. It should be a simple matter for you to dispose of him.
Did my destiny really have anything to do with being able to kill someone or not? Come to think of it, the man god did say something about how I might be able to kill Orsted where others would have failed. All right, I understand. I didn't like the idea of killing someone, but if it meant protecting the lives of my family, I would certainly do my best. My target was an evil minister anyway. Surely I could do away with someone like that. If my opponent was that insidious, basically like a Zaku Gundam, then he wasn't even human to begin with. But from everything I've heard, isn't there supposed to be a second prince and his group of followers? You sure we don't have to deal with them?
You refer to second Prince Halfost? He never had a chance of becoming king. He doesn't have it in him, and moreover there are few who honestly think him capable of sitting on the throne.
Aha, so Halfost is the name of the second prince. I have no idea what he looks like or what kind of person he is, but I assume he has to be at least somewhat capable to be considered a candidate for the throne. Seems better to be safe than sorry, you never know what might happen.
There is nothing to worry about. Even if we fail, there is always next time.
Next? As in our next move?
Yes, that's exactly what I meant.
And what will happen to Ariel if we fail?
She will die, I'm sure.
Perhaps 2,000 years of life had desensitized him to failure. A plan that many years in the making would have its share of pitfalls. You couldn't always get what you wanted, and if he was playing the long game, a whole century in advance, then it was probably inconsequential to him if there were a couple of missteps along the way. But still, let's not take chances. Speaking that flippantly will only bring a smile to the man-god's face. Orsted's cheeks colored with rage, which terrified me. There may be other failures awaiting us if we don't commit ourselves now. Those failures add up. They might affect whether you're ultimately victorious or not. I didn't mind that he was more focused on winning than the path to getting there, but if Ariel died, there was a good chance Sylphie might get caught up in it too. I had also promised to introduce Ghislaine to Ariel. If those close to me suffered, I would too, and I certainly didn't want to suffer. Instead, we should plan each step carefully. Let's keep our guard up and make sure we're victorious every time we face off against him.
That goes without saying.
He still scowled menacingly, but he nodded in agreement. Now, with that out of the way, our first order of business will be to put Princess Ariel on the throne. You'll issue your orders, and I'll carry them out. Does that sound good?
Yes.
It was like I'd earned myself a sponsor, like I now had Sir Orsted of the renowned Dragon God Society backing me. The only downside was the work he forced on me, which was kind of a pain.
All right. Let's come up with a plan to deal with the second Prince Half-Ost then.
I can handle that myself. I need only overthrow the main nobles supporting him. Since he has no desire for the throne to begin with, that will be more than enough to dissuade him from fighting for it.
A realization hit me as I listened to Orsted. From his point of view, it probably didn't matter who became king. Even if Half-Ost did somehow take the throne, he could simply have me infiltrate his inner circle.
In about a month, word should arrive that the current king has fallen ill. There is something we need to do before then.
What's that? His expression was grim, making it clear he wouldn't permit mistakes. Well, that's terrifying. He probably always looked like that when he was being serious, but that didn't make it any less intimidating. If looks could kill, I'd be on the floor right now.
We need to bring Perugius Dola over to Ariel's side. His support will be critical if she is to take the throne.
Despite how much anxiety his words caused, I sort of saw that coming. Derek Redbat had been destined to persuade Perugius to join Ariel, but he wasn't here. Perugius, however, was still a necessary asset. I would have to take on Derek's role and find some way to win him over. So basically, I'll need to spend the next month getting closer to Ariel and Luke, while also trying to talk Perugius into joining her. Is that right?
Yes.
All right then. At least we'd made a concrete plan to address our current conundrum. We were going to change the present in hope of altering the course of the future 100 years from now. To that end, we needed to make Ariel king. This should be good enough for our first strategy meeting.
Take this.
He pulled something from his pocket, a scroll, and handed it to me. I unfurled it to discover that a magic circle had been drawn on it. What's this?
A guardian beast summoning circle.
Ooh! This was the very same thing he'd mentioned to me yesterday. I was impressed he'd kept his promise so soon after he'd made it. I figured it would take a while, since he would probably prioritize reading my journal first.
Pour your mana into it and picture something in your mind that will protect your family. It can even be a word. That should be enough to beckon forth that which you require.
Will a picture that vague really be enough?
Your mana pool is enormous. You will gain a better partner this way than if you tried to specifically summon something.
I wasn't entirely convinced, but if he said so, it was worth giving it a shot. I just hope I don't wind up summoning anything weird. You know, like a childlike girl whose title starts with demon and ends with empress.
What you call forth depends entirely on you. That said, Kishirika Kishirisu possesses an enormous amount of power. A summoning circle this small would not be able to bring her to you.
So the size is the only problem. Does that mean if we made a bigger summoning circle, I could theoretically call her here? Not that I actually wanted to do so. She was too obnoxious. At any rate, I will be sure to summon this guardian beast tomorrow.
Very well.
My heart was pounding with excitement. What kind of creature might I summon? A badass one, I hoped. With it standing beside me, I would look twice as awesome as I did now, enough to make Sylphie and Roxy fall for me all over again. Oh, that's right. There's one more important matter I forgot to ask him about. That's right. Supposedly, one of my descendants is going to help you in the future. Does that mean I should have a bunch of kids just to be on the safe side? Or does that pose the potential danger of one of them later giving birth to Laplace?
None of your children will give birth to Laplace. Do as you like.
Understood. I will do just that, then.
That means I'm free to pump out the babies. Surely, Orsted would be pleased to have a large number of companions as well. In that case, allow me to excuse myself. I need to see how this summoning circle you gave me works out.
All right.
I'll see you again in a few days. If anything happens in the meantime, please be sure to send a letter to my house again. By the way, milord, did you already go visit Nanahoshi?
No, not yet.
I know it's not really my place to say this, but if you're bothered by her helping me to lay a trap for you, I hope you'll have it in your heart to forgive her. I basically blackmailed her into complying. He said nothing, his lips a thin, narrow line. I didn't want them to have a falling out because of me. Nanahoshi was always against me fighting you. She said you had done a lot for her. Orsted kept silent. In fact, it seems she still feels guilty about agreeing to help me. If you can find it within you to forgive her, I hope you may arrange to meet her and give her the chance to apologize, at least.
Very well. I will do as you suggest. Nanahoshi is, for all her faults, a useful woman.
That's right. She definitely is. Very useful.
There is one other thing. While I am able to contact you at my leisure, it would be inconvenient if there was an emergency and you had no way to contact me. Take this with you.
He slipped a ring out of his breast pocket and set it on the table. I had seen something like this before, and very recently at that. In fact, this was a ring Nanahoshi had once possessed, the very one she'd used to lure Orsted into my trap.
Should the need arise, use this to call for me.
When in use, the ring would emit a magical power that allowed it to act like a lodestone, leading its partner ring to its location. If it were a magical implement, we might be able to turn it into something like a radar, but alas, it was incredibly difficult to replicate the effect of magic items. There were nearly no such duplicates in existence. Orsted returning this to me spoke to his confidence that he could put me down should I launch another secret attack on him, or maybe it was proof that he trusted me not to try it again. I choose to believe the latter. Orsted surely had no desire to unleash his real power a second or third time, thereby depleting his precious mana once again. If he was trusting me with this, it was up to me not to disappoint him. All right, we'll meet again later. I pocketed the ring and set off for home. Of course, I didn't forget to collect Zenoba as I left. Chapter 2, Guardian Beast. We had a month until Asura Kingdom sent word that its king had fallen ill. In that time, I had to work with Ariel to convince Rudeus to join her side. To that end, I needed to pump Sylphie for all the details I could. But she probably had her guard up thanks to Orsted's curse, so I might not be able to persuade her to bring me into Ariel's plans. I was torn about whether to trust her and tell her the whole truth, or to give up fighting Orsted's curse and avoid mentioning him altogether. But first, I had another objective to complete. Namely, the very reason why I'd agreed to work under Orsted to begin with, so I could protect my family. Now that I was his little errand boy, I'd be away from home more often. I needed someone, or something, to take my place. Thus, my first order of business was summoning this guardian beast. It was still morning when I gathered all the members of my household in the garden. That included Aisha, Lilia, and Zenith, who normally spent all their time inside, as well as Eris, who had newly joined the family. Roxy and Norn were present too, as were Dillo and Bai. Sylphie carried Lucy, who had just recently learned to stand while holding on to something. In a moment, I will be summoning the guardian beast that will serve our family. Feel free to clap. Applause rang from the crowd. The audience's fervor was hitting its peak. Tonight's concert would be legendary. Hold up, Dillo and Bite. Why aren't the two of you clapping? This just won't do. What? They're pets so they can't clap? Well, I suppose it can't be helped. As for exactly what I will be summoning, I am afraid I don't know for sure. However, we can expect something particularly powerful, and this creature, whatever it is, will keep our family safe and secure.
Are you sure this will be okay? That this thing won't eat us all while you're gone?
That's a terrifying thought. That said, I did recall reading a story like that a long time ago. Something about someone calling forth a beast they couldn't control, and it killing everyone. I get you're worried, but this was made by the meticulous hand of the dragon god.
Which is precisely why I'm worried.
Logically speaking, Orsted would never use such a roundabout way to get rid of us, but Sylphie probably wasn't thinking straight thanks to his curse. But wait, could this be his way of putting a leash on me in case I betray him? Like if I turn my back on him, will he threaten me? With a snap of my fingers, that beast residing at your house will devour your entire family. That really didn't seem likely. In any case, I'm going to summon it now. If it seems dangerous, we'll get rid of it together, and then I can give Orsted an earful.
Sounds good to me.
She pulled the sword from its scabbard with a majestic clang. She had two at her hip. On the right was Eminence, a magic blade the sword god had gifted her. On her left was one she had grown attached to and used for a long time. Isn't it cumbersome, carrying both at the same time?
When that happens, all of us will be able to fight Orsted together.
We're not going to fight. We're just going to file a complaint, like a normal dissatisfied customer. If we tried to take him down, we'd be the ones kicking the bucket instead. That said, she looked awfully happy. She wasn't just looking for an excuse to pick a fight with him, was she? We won't be fighting Orsted, but we'll have plenty of chances to fight together in the future. I hope you'll save your strength until then. Her face sank, as if the idea bored her. It was fine if she wanted to fight other people, but Orsted was off limits. Never in my life did I want to fight another battle, that hopeless if I could help it. I'd pee myself if I had to do it a second time.
Still, are you really sure this magic circle is safe? Perhaps it might be a good idea to have someone like Lord Perugius look at it first.
Apparently, she was also leery of something Orsted had made. That curse on him really is powerful. As absurd as the whole curse nonsense seemed, the intensity of their reactions made its existence impossible to deny. That made my decision an easy one. Though I did decide to take a second look at the scroll before I used it, I wouldn't go so far as to have Perugius check it, but it couldn't hurt to examine it once more myself. It seemed like a normal summoning circle. The part that restricted the conditions of the summoning had some symbols I wasn't familiar with, but there was nothing too suspicious, as far as I could tell. Perhaps I could have Nanahoshi take a look. No, that would be rude. Orsted only made this for me because I didn't know how to do it myself. What good did it do to be this distrustful? I'm sure it's fine.
Well, if you say so. I believe you. But wait, just a second while I get my staff.
Roxy, it seemed, was not entirely convinced. She said she trusted me, but still disappeared inside the house to retrieve her weapon in case things got ugly.
I have no idea why everyone seems so on guard, but you're sure this isn't dangerous, big brother? Don't be stupid. If it were that dangerous, he wouldn't activate it with us around.
Her trust felt like a dagger to the heart. Honestly, I hadn't confirmed if this summoning circle was safe. Could I really just use it like this? Perhaps I should wait until I could get Perugius to check it, just to be sure? But if I did, Aisha's affectionate gaze would turn to disappointment, and she'd only be suspicious of Orsted after that.
Should the worst come to pass, I will act as a shield for everyone. Please, do what you need.
Well, that sounds ominous. I didn't think it would come to that, but everyone else was so jumpy that I was on edge. Were we really going to be okay? No. I need to have faith in Orsted. He said he trusted me. All right then, I'm going to use it. Everyone nodded. I set the scroll down on a table I'd erected using my earth magic. Here goes. I steeled myself and placed my hands on the circle. I concentrated, letting the magic flow through my veins and gather in my fingertips. From there, I poured it into the circle. I kept pumping more and more of my mana in. This creature was supposed to be something that could protect my family. Even if I drained myself dry, it still wouldn't be enough in my eyes. I'd gladly take every last bit of Orsted's mana too if I could. Using more mana didn't necessarily guarantee a strong guardian beast, but I would still give this everything I had. Orsted also said it was important to imagine what I wanted. Something to protect my family, that was awfully vague. I needed something incredibly powerful. Powerful enough that a normal opponent wouldn't stand a chance. Something that was incredibly loyal and would never oppose me. And since they were supposed to be protecting my family, preferably not something crude and indecent, I definitely didn't want some tentacle monster covered in mucus. That wouldn't be good for my little sisters or Lucy. This guardian beast was going to be Lucy's knight, so I needed something respectable. That's right, a creature of high moral character who is loyal and strong. Okay, order up. Let's go. Come on out, guardian beast. The circle began emitting a bright light, not a pure white, but a mix of blue, red, yellow, and green. It was a whole rainbow, but I felt as if the summoning had caught on something, as if there was something stopping it. What could it be? I ignored it and continued pouring in more mana. Whatever had been blocking the spell snapped. A voice groaned, though I couldn't tell where the sound came from. Was it the guardian beast that would now be protecting my family? It sounded rather ominous, as if the creature was in pain. I simply increased my mana output, yanking whatever it was through the summoning circle. Ah! A voice rang out as the mana flow I'd been feeding into the circle was abruptly cut off. The light faded, and from within it appeared a man in a yellow mask and white uniform, a large dagger hanging by his side. He was perched atop the earthen platform I had created, down on one knee with his arms wrapped around himself.
How can this be? How could my contract with Lord Rudeus be destroyed like this?
He remained in that pose as he lifted his head and looked around. The mask obscured his eyes, but I could swear he was staring straight at me.
What's the meaning of this?
No, it was wrong to call him that. I knew exactly who this was. Our Menfi the Bright. The way he's posed reminds me of a fallen angel. Not that I'm trying to make light of him, I swear. I'd never be able to hold a candle to his brightness. He's way more lit than I am. Just kid.
I asked you, Rudeus Greyrat, what your intention is here.
He leapt from the table and tried to seize me by the collar, only to freeze midway through, his entire body trembling. Eris immediately moved into battle stance, but I held a hand up to stay her. Bad girl, go to your pen, Eris. Seriously, what was going on? I had summoned the bright and noble Armanafi of all people. Was that even possible? Although, despite his human form, he was actually a spirit. Perhaps this wasn't so surprising after all. Not that that explained everything. Was this all a ploy by Orsted? Was he trying to provoke Perugius to get him to kill me instead? Oh, come on. If you're going to go that far, then just do the job yourself. No. You see, this just kind of happened. I was activating a magic circle that Sir Orsted gave me, and it sort of summoned you here by accident.
Orsted's magic circle, you say? What precisely were you trying to summon?
A guardian beast to watch over my family. Aramonfi snatched up the scroll with the magic circle. He studied it before gaping.
These are some bothersome stipulations he's placed on the summoned entity?
What conditions are they?
The one this circle summons must be absolutely obedient to you, and they are to defend your family against any calamities that might befall them in perpetuity. In other words, they are to serve for eternity.
Wow. So this magic circle was basically a slave contract? Well, the good news is that Orsted didn't lie to me. Looks like he's trustworthy after all.
Anything else?
The summoner will be the one who determines precisely what is called forth.
So basically, I could decide what guardian beast I received. Great. Then I'd like to make an exchange.
An exchange?
Yes, I didn't mean to summon you, Mr. Ramanfi, so I'd like to trade you out for someone else.
Then hurry up and dissolve your contract with me. I am Lord Perugius's proud servant, not yours.
Yeah, right. Honestly, it wasn't a terrible idea having Aramonfi to protect our family. He moved at the speed of light, so if anything unforeseen happened, he'd be the perfect person to relay a message to me. Yeah, but Perugius values him too much. If I took him away, it might cause discord between us. So how do I go about doing that, exactly?
Order me to return to Lord Perugius's side immediately. Dot Bath of Destruction will be able to sever the contract.
All right.
Order me, now!
Due to the absolute obedience clause, he needed a direct order from me to leave.
Okay, then, by the power of this summoning circle, I command you to go to Lord Perugius and request advice from him as to how best to call forth a good guardian beast.
Erromanthe kept the magic circle in his hands as he disappeared in a flash of light. Sorry, everyone. Looks like I screwed up. They were all staring at me, slack-jawed. Erromanthe returned after a while. He delivered a message from Perugius before, hissing about how he'd let this transgression slide, but it had better never happen again. Erromanthe was extremely proud of his status as Perugius' servant after all. I did feel genuinely guilty about stealing that from him, however, temporarily. The circle that Orsted had drawn me apparently lost its power when the contract was annulled, so Perugius made me a new one. It was hard to believe he'd show me such kindness after I so rudely swiped one of his servants. He really was as magnanimous as Silverl claimed. The truly terrifying part of the whole ordeal was the level of power Orsted's circle had commanded. Or maybe it was my own magic that was to blame. Perhaps both. Each was merely a spark on its own, but combined, they made a raging flame. Since the previous summoning hadn't depleted much of my mana, I decided to collect myself and try again immediately. According to Perugius, it was better not to imagine vague concepts like majestic, omniscient, or omnipotent, but rather an animal. If that was all, I wish Orsted had simply said so. But knowing him, he'd probably have told me to keep Erromanthe, as crazy as that idea sounded. Okay, let's try this again. I surveyed the area before putting my hands on the magic circle once more. This time I was going to keep a concrete image in my mind. I wanted a strong, proud animal. A lion. I had no idea if they existed here as I knew them, but the word existed in the language, so surely there was something similar. I wanted the king of beasts, the strongest creature this world had to offer. Although, if I wanted something loyal, I might be better served by a canine rather than a feline. Nah, that doesn't matter. The magic circle requires absolute obedience, so I just need to focus on something that's strong. I want the most noble beast that exists in this world. I focused all the magic I had in every corner of my body into my right hand. For a few moments I squeezed my eyes shut, but as the last drops of mana left my body and poured into the circle, I snapped them open again. Come on! Bring home the bacon! I sucked in a breath as the magic circle emitted a dazzling light. It was the same colorful rainbow I had seen earlier, but this time I didn't experience the sensation of the spell snagging on something. My mana flowed smoothly into the circle, and whatever was on the other end heeded my call. In fact, it felt as though a hand was being extended toward me, and all I had to do was take it and pull. I was confident that I would be successful this time. All right, come on out. It grew louder and louder, ringing in my ears. Is there something I should be saying right now as I'm summoning this thing? I guess it doesn't matter. As I debated that, the light disappeared. What stood before me was a white lion, over 2 meters tall. I assumed it was female since it had no mane. The way its snout extended, however, reminded me more of a dog than a cat. Wait, this is no lion, it's a dog. And judging by how short its legs are, it's a pup at that. In fact, upon closer inspection, I realized its fur wasn't white but silver. It looked like a baby Shiba Inu, but far more massive in some saying, however reminded fast. Did I botch it again?
It's adorable. But do you really think this thing can protect us? Well, for a pup, it does look confident.
At the very least, it looks too innocent for anyone to suspect it's a guardian beast.
The two of them seemed approving enough.
It does look intelligent.
She had a perfect poker face, so it was hard to tell what she was thinking, but she wasn't knitting her brows or frowning at least. Zenith was expressionless as ever. I had no idea what Bite thought of our newest addition, but Dillo was already on his back, expressing submission toward our guardian beast. Not too bad as far as first impressions went. Although, I'm pretty sure I've seen this pup before.
Hold on. Isn't this the sacred beast that was so attached to you back in Doldia Village, Rudeus?
That's right. I just remembered. What were the words in Beast God tongue again? I cleared my throat and said, Are you perhaps the sacred beast from Doldia? The great dog bobbed its head in response before licking my face. Ugh, it stinks. Damn it, what does this thing take me for? A piece of meat? At least I finally knew exactly what I had summoned. I see. The sacred beast, huh? The same one the Doldia tribe treasured so much that they locked it away deep within their village. Crap! If they found out that I summoned it to serve as my personal guardian, they would be absolutely livid, wouldn't they? If they put me on their wanted list, it would only cause more problems. I already had enough on my plate. Guess I gotta exchange this one too, although annulling the contract would cause more trouble for either Perugius or Orsted, and there was no guarantee I'd get anything better on the third try. Oh, sacred beast, if I might humbly ask, do you possess the power to protect my family from any calamity that might befall them? He seemed to be saying, leave everything to me. He seemed motivated enough, but on the other hand, he had gotten himself kidnapped before. Could I really rely on him to protect them? Orsted assured me that the man-god probably wouldn't come after my family much anymore, so maybe I didn't have anything to worry about. But as I was lost in thought, the sacred beast leaped from the summoning table and pressed its body against me, licking at my face again. Ah, he's so soft. They definitely have to be using some kind of conditioner on him. And if he's our guardian beast, that means I'll be able to enjoy his fluffy fur every single day. Yep, I've got to be mistaken. This definitely isn't the sacred beast. Nope, this was not the holy creature the beast folk looked up to with such reverence. Definitely not. There was no way their protector god would show up here. Of all places, it had to be a look-alike. That's right. This thing is a lion, that's it. It was clearly a lion cub I had called here from one of an infinite number of alternate worlds. At least, that was the explanation I decided upon in my mind. It was good enough for me, although that excuse probably wouldn't hold water when it came to protecting me from the wrath of the Doldia. Well, if things started going sideways, I could always ask Lord Perugius for a favor and swap this lion cub for something else. Until then, we'd have a trial period of sorts. All right. From today forth, your name is Leo. The sacred beast promptly licked my fingers before snorting in response. Then, suddenly, he lifted his head as if he had noticed something. His gaze turned toward Roxy. Leo trotted over to her before promptly shoving his face up her skirt.
Ack, hey, what are you doing?
Roxy cried, bonking him with her staff. Our perverted canine merely sniffed and licked at her leg before wrapping his enormous body around her.
Rudy, what am I supposed to do about this?
Nervously, she peered over at me. I had no idea what was going on exactly, but it was clear that our new family member was attached to Roxy. Leo, now that I have summoned you here, you're my servant. Your duty is to protect my family. Understood? He barked back cheerfully. I had no idea how useful a pup would be for watching over everyone, but since this was what I had summoned, it was going to be our guardian beast henceforth. Surely, he'll prove his worth. Leo, allow me to explain a bit about what your employment here entails. I know you're used to getting your way and having people spoil you, but that won't fly here. You're going to have to wear a collar and live in a doghouse like a normal canine. If anyone suspicious appears, you bark at them, bite them, and render them powerless. If they're too strong, you have my permission to kill them. You'll have 3 meals a day here, and you're free to take naps whenever you want. If you so desire, we'll even take you for walks when you want. If you find these conditions acceptable, please bark once. Great. That's the kind of answer I like to hear. And one more thing. It goes without saying that if you dare do anything to hurt my family. His throat rumbled, as if he were offended by the mere idea. Great. Then our contract is sealed. Now let's shake on it. I held out my hand and he promptly offered up his paw. And, with that, our family had a new pet. Chapter 3, Opening Move. 2 days had passed since I summoned our guardian beast. I had his name engraved on a leather collar which we looped around his neck, and we built a large doghouse for him. His job was, essentially, to be our security guard. When I woke in the morning, he'd be waiting at the front entrance as Eris and I came out to train in the yard. He would continue to stand at the entrance like a sentry until it was time to go for a walk. Once we returned home, he would come into the house and watch over everyone. Leo periodically made rounds of the house to ensure nothing was amiss. If it was, he did his utmost to remedy it. If Lucy was crying, he would comfort her. If Aisha went out shopping, he would accompany her. When asked, he would even walk with Norn to school. It was really as though we had our own home security system. Leo was incredibly intelligent. He did whatever my family told him, and was perfectly toilet trained. As for tricks, he knew wait, down, paw, and beg, and even more complicated things, such as spinning 3 times and barking, plus somersaulting like a cat. He was also really submissive toward my family. When Aisha or Norn nervously reached up to pet him, he would wag his tail so hard it was like a helicopter rotor. He was particularly fond of Roxy and acted like a loyal knight around her. His attitude toward her was markedly different from his interactions with everyone else. When Roxy woke up, he would circle around her while wagging his tail and try to shove his head between her legs. The first time he did that, I scolded him, saying, "I'm the only one who gets to lick her there." He acted dejected and gave up, but the very next day he was back at it. Roxy normally commuted to work on Dillo's back, but I noticed Leo barking at him as if trying to tell him something. I had no way of deciphering his words or knowing if Dillo was heeding them, but the armadillo seemed to flinch nervously away from Leo. I also spotted Leo hovering at the bottom of the stairs when Roxy climbed them, staring up at her as if worried she might slip and fall. His overprotectiveness almost made me feel like a pathetic husband for not fussing over her as much. I wondered why he was so focused on Roxy and Roxy alone, but maybe it was because he was a dog. Perhaps he could sniff out which of our family members was the most impressive. Come to think of it, Linny and Persenna seemed to have the same ability. Despite acting as the perfect servant with Roxy, Leo and Eris weren't the most compatible. Or rather, Leo seemed put off by Eris. She, on the other hand, absolutely adored animals. She loved nothing more than burying her face in their soft fur and giving them a squeeze. Perhaps she had cornered him and done just that without me knowing? The Mad Sword King's power was no joke. I had experienced it myself. When she embraced someone with all her strength, it was like being crushed to death by a bear. Your life flashed before your eyes. I didn't mind her hugging me like that, but I could understand why Leo might keep a wide berth. He only approached her when it was time to go for a walk, whereupon the two of them would check the house's perimeter before setting off. I had a feeling this had to do with her stamina. A walk for him wasn't a stroll around the block. I suspected he was circling the entire city on his little outings. To accomplish that so quickly required impressive speed, and the only person in our household who could match such a pace was Eris. Sylphie might be able to keep up if she tried, but just barely. In any case, Leo typically chose Eris as his partner when going for walks. Maybe he considered her a fellow security guard. Incidentally, Leo's territory encompassed a 2-kilometer radius around our house. He wouldn't let so much as a stray cat into his territory. From the look of things, he was making good on his mission to protect our family. This whole guardian beast business had given me more peace of mind than I expected. A dog was definitely a good pick. The only issue was that said dog also happened to be the protector god of the beast folk tribe. When Ghislaine came over to check in on Eris, she was gobsmacked to find Leo here and keeps.
I can't understand him when he speaks. But it seems to me that he came here of his own volition, in which case the Doldia tribe should have no complaints.
So I should be fine. It was time for me to move on to the next step of the plan. And, just on time, Luke showed up at our house. I had gone out on a short errand that only took about 20 minutes. When I got home, Luke was standing at our front gate. I immediately hid in the shadows to keep an eye on him, remembering what Orsted had told me about the man-god being able to manipulate people. I also recalled the entry in my diary which mentioned Luke being used by the man-god to bring Sylphie down. My future self was admittedly a bit paranoid, so his word might not be the most reliable, but if the man-god did want to take down Sylphie or Ariel, Luke would prove an effective puppet. Sylphie did rely on him after all, regardless of what she said about him. In other words, Luke had the highest probability of being chosen as one of the man-god's apostles. If we were going to war with him, it would be paramount to locate his followers and suss out their motives. With that in mind, I kept a close eye on him as I darted from shadow to shadow until I was close enough to hear his voice.
I never knew someone as amazing as you had come to this city. You're wonderful, Adorable. Your eyes are so beautiful and full of determination, and your hair is soft as silk. You're like an angel, no, like a goddess of beauty come to grace this world with your presence. It took but a single glance for my heart to be stolen.
His words made my head ache. What a bunch of overused cliches. Even I would never say something so sappy and exaggerated, but maybe such things were perfectly normal in this world. If I said something like that to Sylphie, she'd probably go red as a tomato. I could just imagine her smiling shyly and saying, "You don't need to work so hard to butter me up. I'm already all yours, Rudy. Hee hee."
Oh, pardon my manners. I haven't even introduced myself. I am Luke Nodo's Grey Rat and the second son of my household. The Nodos Grey Rats preside over one of the 4 major regions of Asura Kingdom.
If he really was one of the man-god's flunkies, it made sense that he'd lay it on thick when flirting with a girl, especially if it was at the man-god's command. It would be weird for him to go to such lengths if not. Luke had no shortage of women flocking to him. Based on what Sylphie had told me, he saw girls as little more than disposable sex toys. More importantly, who in the heck was he trying to talk up right now? I couldn't get a good look from where I was hiding. If he was likening his target to an angel, the first person that came to mind was Sylphie, but he wouldn't dare talk to her like that. The word goddess immediately brought Roxy to mind, since that was precisely what she was to me, but it couldn't be her either. So then, Aisha maybe? No. She was more like a little devil than an angel.
If I might be so bold, would you honor me with your name? Of course, I understand if you don't wish to tell me your last name, but I beseech you, O beautiful one, to at least share your first name as consolation, that I might engrave it into my heart.
At least I'd be able to hear the name of the target of his affections soon. Who was he trying to win over? Once I knew the answer, I could figure out who the man-god was aiming for. Of course, this assumed that Luke really was one of the man-god's apostles. I couldn't discount the possibility that he'd just fallen in love with one of my family members at first sight. Although if it's the latter, I am little better than a peeping Tom.
Ah, I see you refuse to share your name with me. Then at the very least, I beg of you to give me the honor of kissing your hand. That alone will be enough to console me.
He bent forward, stretching a hand toward the other person. His head jerked momentarily. Then his entire body froze. What happened? Clearly something was up. Had the man-god attacked him? Or was he being controlled right this very minute? As I contemplated such questions, Luke suddenly sank to his knees and collapsed. He didn't even twitch. He'd completely lost consciousness. What on earth had happened? Wait, I'm pretty sure I've witnessed this before. The jerking, the collapsing, and the losing of consciousness. Oh, God, it makes my own head pound. After Luke slumped over, a woman stepped out of our gate and stared down at him. She slammed her foot into his unconscious head. Eris. Eris is the one who knocked him out.
What's your problem? Appearing out of nowhere and babbling like a lunatic.
She wrinkled her nose, kicking him again to shove him off the walkway. Then she marched back into the house as if nothing had happened. I slipped from the shadows and went over to Luke. He was still out cold, the whites of his eyes showing she'd KO'd him real good. I had to question his morals for daring to hit on one of my wives, but come to think of it, though I had reported to Ariel and Luke when I made it home, I hadn't yet told them about my marriage. In fact, this was his first time meeting Eris. Still, I was shocked he'd tried to make a pass at her like that. Maybe the original timeline where the two of them got together had some influence over him. Or perhaps it was proof that he really was in league with the man-god. It was difficult to be sure, either way. I pursed my lips. For the moment at least, it was best not to leave him lying outside. I decided to drag him into the house with me. I could begin the interrogation once he regained consciousness. I'm home. Eris was there to greet me, though she was silent at first. Her face lit up when she saw me, but the moment she spotted Luke, she knitted her brows and crossed her arms.
You know this guy?
Yeah, well, I guess you could say he's Sylphie's colleague to be more precise.
Oh, well, sorry, I punched him.
Oh? She's being awfully meek? It's fine. I bet it was his own fault for saying something inappropriate.
It was.
Well, then he has only himself to blame. He got us just desserts for trying to lay his grimy hands on my heiress. All the same, I was going to lay him down somewhere so he could rest. He'd be in the way if I put him in the living room. Maybe I should just throw him in one of the empty rooms on the first floor.
Hey, Rudeus.
Yes?
Do you also want to kiss my hand?
I glanced at her hand. It was covered in calluses from her training, rather rough and rugged for a woman's hand. Still, it suited her, and I liked her hands just the way they were. I'd rather kiss your lips than your hand. That earned me a swift punch to the gut. She didn't pack much power behind it, but her aim was so accurate that she caught me right in the liver.
That's off limits until nighttime.
Her face going bright red as she stomped toward the living room. Ah, okay, so I'm free to claim them at night then. Looking forward to it. That aside, what should I do now? Personally, I wanted to consult Sylphie quickly so I could convey my wish to aid Ariel. That way the lot of us could work together to persuade Perugius to join her side. Alas, I had no idea what had motivated Luke to travel here. If he'd come to cause problems on behalf of the man god, I certainly couldn't let that fly.
I guess I'll wait till Luke wakes up.
While Luke remained unconscious, I went to check in on Sylphie and the others. I would be heartbroken if something awful were to happen to the rest of my family members while I was preoccupied with Luke. Though that was probably unlikely, given that Eris was here. Leo was at the top of the stairwell on the second floor, sitting obediently with an alert expression. I passed him and checked several of the rooms. Roxy's room was littered with clothes but otherwise unoccupied. Considering Dillo was absent as well, it was probably safe to bet she'd already left for the academy. Sylphie and Aisha were cooking in the kitchen. I beat a hasty retreat, not wanting to interrupt them. I found Zenith tucked in her bed, asleep, with Lilia reading a book at her side. Nothing amiss there. I found Eris playing with Lucy in the living room. Lucy had grabbed Eris's hands and climbed on top of the sofa, while Eris nervously supported her and looked on. It was a heartwarming sight, but I could only savor it for a few moments. I then returned to the empty room where I'd left Luke. He had already regained consciousness by the time I got back.
I had a dream about a red-haired angel. She was beautiful and sweet, but she was also so strong. My ideal woman, but when I tried to kiss her hand, I woke up.
He was sitting up, his eyes vacant, as he mumbled incomprehensibly to himself. He's probably got some brain damage from Eris's punch. Wait, that can't be it. He was saying that angel crap before she smacked him. Please calm down, Master Luke. There is no red-haired angel.
Oh, it's you, Rudeus. Wait, what are you doing here, huh? I'm in your house. Just a moment ago, I was at the front gate, and this angel, what's going on?
His memories were all muddled. At least it didn't seem like he'd met the man god during his brief lapse of consciousness.
Ah!
Luke glanced behind me and screamed. I looked back, and Eris was there. She'd shoved the door open and was staring in. She took one glance at Luke, huffed, and marched back toward the living room. Apparently, she had been at least a little worried about him. My fragile maiden's heart was pounding with worry. Don't tell me she's already started developing some feelings for him? That can't be, right?
Ah, wait! Your name, please at least give me your name. If you could also give me your address and tell me your favorite flower, I would be forever grateful. Oh, and I'd be delighted if you could tell me what kind of man you like.
Please calm yourself. This is her address. She lives here. I managed to restrain Luke from following her out of the room, but he grabbed me by the shoulders and brought his face close.
Rudeus, if she lives here, that must mean you're related, right? Tell me, who is she?
Her name is Eris Greyrat. The two of us just got married.
What? You married? So that means she's your woman?
Yes, that is what that means. Given our relationship dynamic, it was probably more apt to say I was her man, but the meaning was the same.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Why would you apologize? The early bird gets the worm, as they say.
I suppose that's true. After hearing about this alternate timeline from Orsted, I couldn't help but feel guilty. Luke and Eris were originally supposed to be a pair. The situation felt like receiving a package only to find out it had your neighbor's address on it. Even so, that didn't change our past together. I was the one who'd been her tutor and traveled the demon continent with her. We'd shared our first sexual experience together. Luke sighed.
It's not all that rare for good women to fall for a single man, or for good men to fall for a single woman.
For whatever reason, he kept going.
Men often keep a number of women for themselves, but the opposite is practically unheard of. That was merely the way God made us humans. After all, a man can give their seed to multiple women, but a woman can only have one man's child at a time. It does seem there are demon women who can have multiple men's babies at once, but the same cannot be said for our race.
He was sure, coming at this from a biased male perspective. Of course, I was one to talk, and not to defend myself here. I also thought it was perfectly reasonable for it to go both ways. You know, one woman and multiple men. A reverse harem.
Good women tend to gather around the man who holds the most power. You have power, money, status, and prestige. I can understand why that angel, Miss Eris, chose to be with you. So...
He paused and shook his head.
No, that's not it. I didn't come all the way here to have this conversation with you. I came here because I have something to ask of you.
Oh? The timing was far too convenient. It was reasonable to think he was the man-god's lackey, trying to change the course of history. I couldn't shake that suspicion, but I would hear him out either way. I assumed he would try to find some way to lead me toward my own destruction, or otherwise try to impede Ariel's ascension to the throne.
Would you lend us, that is, would you lend Princess Ariel your aid?
I couldn't believe my ears. What the heck is going on? He's asking for my aid? Shouldn't he be asking for the opposite? No. I had made it perfectly clear that I would assist her if needed. He wasn't approaching me with such a request out of the blue. Of course. I would be more than happy to, but why are you... Mushoku Tensei Vol16 by Rifujin Namagonat, cast by RTL Studio. If you are interested in creating your own audio drama like this, please visit rtl.ai and use promotion code RTL to activate your account. Now, enjoy the story.
Your skills with magic and ability to befriend people with difficult personalities is astounding. On top of that, you demonstrated your fighting capabilities by returning home alive from a battle with the Dragon God. He even took you on as his subordinate. Truly, such feats are impressive beyond words.
Okay, it makes me a little uneasy when you go out of your way to compliment me like that.
However, we feared involving you would disrupt Sylphie's happiness. That is why we never explicitly requested your assistance until now. We couldn't. Neither Princess Ariel nor I wish to involve Sylphie in this power struggle any more than we already have.
He'd said as much earlier, when the two of us dueled.
But
he was good-looking enough that such a pose made him look more like a tortured hero. No wonder most women fell for him so easily.
in the past 6 years, we have exerted our influence with the magic nations to enlist a number of nobles and craftspeople to our side. Among them are some nobles who were born in Asura, and even some with a great deal of political sway there, but it hasn't been enough to ensure us a decisive victory. After all, these people are still outsiders in the kingdom's eyes. However, Lord Perugius could turn the tides for us. He has enormous sway in the kingdom, in addition to his force of charisma and impressive martial power. If we had him on our side, it would greatly further Princess Ariel's path to the throne. It doesn't guarantee victory, of course, but at the same time, I don't think we can succeed without his aid. Princess Ariel needs someone of impressive repute to back her.
Luke was being entirely serious, or at least I didn't detect any deception or ulterior motives. He sincerely believed Perugius was necessary for Ariel to claim kingship. Orsted, likewise, had a high opinion of Perugius.
But despite that, Her Highness has nearly given up on trying to persuade him to join us.
Well, given how it's been going, I can't really blame her. When I last saw them both, Perugius had about as much interest in her as he had in the ground he walked on, which was to say, none.
Of course, meeting him was pure chance to begin with. Princess Ariel says we'll make do without him. I agreed with her. If we spend a couple more years strengthening our weaknesses, we'll probably be able to claim victory over her opponents.
Those were intriguing words. According to Orsted, there were little more than 20 days left before the news hit that the kingdom's ruler had fallen ill. If Luke had been in contact with the man-god, he wouldn't be speaking as if they had several years to go, considering the latter would have alerted him of what was to come.
Realistically, though, it would be difficult. Without Lord Perugius's aid, we would suffer great losses even if we did win, and other issues might crop up after she secured the crown.
Based on what he was saying, Ariel was attempting to trigger internal conflict in the kingdom. She needed to take the lead in this power struggle, outwitting her opponents and beating them at their own game so she could be the last one standing. She was aiming for the ultimate position of power in the most powerful country in the world. That throne could not be claimed on words alone. They would need to fight for it. But the fighting would continue even after the goal was achieved. If there was still resistance to her rule, if there were still those who claimed she wasn't worthy, Ariel could lose everything after having expended all her political capital on becoming king. Perugius, however, could act as a deterrent to such opposition. As one of the 3 heroes who killed the demon god, he still held sway in the kingdom. Not every noble would bend the knee with him present, but it would certainly shut a lot of them up if the armored dragon king Perugius announced his support for Ariel's rule. Thus Luke was desperate to have his backing.
And, in order to make absolutely certain we can achieve victory, I would like your assistance,
You do realize I don't know a thing about politics, right? It's perfectly possible I'll be of no help whatsoever.
You're a far greater person than you seem to realize. You'll be plenty helpful simply by being yourself.
I'm not that great.
Great or not, you're a reliable fighter, and you have connections. You're acquainted with Lord Perugius, the dragon god, a demon king, the grandson of the Millie's Pope, the entire Doldia tribe, and Silent Seven Star. Your contacts alone are impressive, and we're not even asking you to use those contacts. It's the fact that you're so well connected that proves you possess something special. I wish only that you might share a bit of that with Princess Ariel.
I kept silent. Perhaps I'd suspected an ulterior motive behind Luke's compliments because I hadn't spoken with him much. Still, I wondered, was he really the man-god's puppet or not? Orsted had already ordered me to assist Ariel, so I would have helped whether or not Luke requested it. However, the fact that he beat me to the punch made me question if he was doing it of his own volition. Maybe I should try some trick questions and see what he says. Who ordered you to come see me?
Ordered me? If you mean Her Highness, she made no such request.
Which means someone else advised you to come to me.
I decided to come here on my own.
And does the name Man-God ring any bells?
Man-God? I remember hearing that name when we were visiting Lord Perugius. Who exactly is that?
Well, if he was in league with the Man-God, he wouldn't show his hand that easily. The Man-God never told me to keep our association hush-hush, but there was nothing to say he wouldn't forbid anyone else from speaking about him.
I guess it does sound as if I'm contradicting myself. We do wish for Sylphie's happiness, and it is possible we might rob her of that by involving her in our conflict with the kingdom. If they label us as insurgents, even the magic nations won't be able to shield us.
That part scared me as well. There was no telling what might happen if we made an enemy of Asura. According to my journal from the future, Sylphie had died as a result, and the Holy Kingdom of Milis had managed to kill Zenoba. Sure, I could fight decently enough. If I unleashed my magic at its maximum potential, I could even wipe out an enormous number of enemies at once. I would even be fearsome in close combat once we had my magic armor repaired. Orsted had admitted he couldn't hold back when facing me in that armor. That being said, it was naive to expect to win every battle you fought head-on. Not even an idiot would fight a pro wrestler bare-handed. To defeat someone like that, you might stab them in the back, poison them, or use money to pressure them into submission. If you couldn't beat someone with power alone, you just had to use some other means. My future self had fortified his defenses by forging a strong relationship with the kingdom of Asura. Enough that they didn't come after him at least. Better yet, they even valued him enough to refuse the Holy Kingdom's request to hand him over. How would things go this time? With Leo in our house, would the other countries hold back, not wanting to strain their relationship with the Beast Tribe? How good of a protector would he prove to be? Orsted had assured me I would be fine as long as I had my guardian beast. According to him, Leo would be perfectly capable of keeping my family safe, since he had his own strong destiny. But can that little pup really guard my family all by himself?
However, since you have the dragon god backing you, I think it won't taint all Sylphie's joy if we get her involved now.
I wasn't so sure about that. There were places where Orsted's influence had no power. The people of this world might have heard of the 7 great powers, but they didn't seem to realize how strong they were, or how far beyond human their abilities were. Having the dragon god's support doesn't mean my life wouldn't be at risk.
That's true, but that's precisely why we only need your support on the surface right now. I want to make Princess Ariel king no matter what it takes.
I met his gaze without flinching, surprised at how strong it was. His determination reminded me of Rui Jerd's, as if he was willing to throw everything away to accomplish his goal. And why is that?
It was the last request of a deceased friend.
I immediately knew he was referring to Derek Redbat.
Please, won't you lend Princess Ariel your strength?
I assumed that he wasn't promising me anything in return because he'd come of his own accord rather than at Ariel's behest. Rather than offering a deal, he was asking for a favor. I stroked my chin. In hindsight, I was still myself even when the man-god was pulling the strings. He did give me advice, but I was the one desperately racking my brains to interpret his words and figure out how best to proceed. Perhaps the same was true of Luke. Maybe he was trying his best to search for a way forward. If that was the case, I wanted to help him. There was just one problem. My opponent was neither Ariel nor the Asura Kingdom. It was the man-god. If there was any possibility that aligning myself with Ariel had something to do with the man-god's plan, I needed to consult Orsted first. Would you permit me to seek the counsel of those around me before I give you an answer? Luke smiled despite looking like he wanted to cry. Apparently, he thought this was my way of turning him down. He got to his feet, and after a long pause said,
All right, sorry to bother you.
Not at all. I will give you my official answer in a couple of days. I promise. His shoulders slumped as he shuffled out of the room. I followed him, intending to see him out. We made our way through the hall and toward the front door. Leo was standing at the top of the stairwell as he had been earlier, peering down at us. He let out a low growl, as if to let Luke know he wouldn't get past him to the second floor. Does this mean Luke really is suspicious? Though I have no idea if Leo can sniff out the man-god's puppets with his nose alone. Eris peeked out of the living room, having heard the growling.
Mrs., I realize I was ignorant of your identity before, but I still apologize for my rude behavior. I do hope we will meet again someday.
Eris reached down to grab her skirt for a curtsy, only to belatedly realize she was wearing pants. She scowled, feeling awkward, and crossed her arms over her chest.
I'll be sure to entertain you properly next time.
I appreciate you saying that. Well, if you'll excuse me.
Before he had a chance to leave, someone yawned from above us.
Eris, please don't shout like that. Everyone is still sleeping.
Sylphie said as she made her way down the stairs. She must have gone up there after I checked on her earlier in the kitchen. Her eyes were still heavy with sleep. Apparently, she'd gone back to bed.
Oh, welcome back, Rudy. Luke, you're here? How come? Did something happen to Her Highness?
I had an errand to run and decided to swing by.
Well, take your time then. I can get you some tea.
No, I should be leaving.
All right. Well, I'll be heading back in a few, so take care of the princess for me until then.
Will do.
Luke smiled forlornly as he left. Sylphie and I followed him to the gate and saw him off. His receding figure reminded me of a lonely salaryman, completely exhausted as he made his way home from work.
What's going on with him?
I didn't respond, but I couldn't help feeling like something had been set into motion. No matter how I decided to act on this, I couldn't do a half-assed job. With that in mind, it was time to report to Orsted. Chapter 4, Mind Made Up. I used the stone Orsted gave me to contact him. About an hour later, I received a letter telling me to meet him outside my cottage, off to the side. Apparently, he'd still been nearby when I reached out. He could have just come to see me instead of sending a letter. In any case, I did as he commanded and set out to meet him at the agreed-upon location. I arrived to find him with his arms crossed, looking as if he'd nodded off. He had obviously been waiting for me. I felt a bit guilty for not hurrying here sooner. Sorry I made you wait so long.
No, I arrived only moments ago.
We sounded like a couple who had just started dating. Anyway, I filled him in on the events since we'd last met, starting with our new guardian beast, Leo. He saw no issue with that. In fact, he was shocked that such an important animal had heeded my summons. He guaranteed me that my family's security was assured with a sacred beast guarding them. Apparently, Leo was more of a big shot than I realized. It really got my attention when he mumbled to himself, "Perhaps Roxy's child is special after all." I grinned when I heard that. I also suggested having Cliff try to remove his curse. Orsted seemed willing to give it a shot. Under this arrangement, Cliff would come to the cottage every few days to work on developing a magical implement that could combat his curse. Since we had no idea when we would see the fruits of Cliff's labors, I told Orsted that I would keep up the guise that he was holding my family hostage in the meantime. He kept a poker face through my explanation, then merely nodded. All right. When I admitted that I hadn't yet reached out to Ariel, he reprimanded me. I could have told him that I was worried about Eris and Leo, or that I was waiting for a good opportunity to introduce Ghislaine to Ariel, since it would be perfect for getting close to her, but those would simply be excuses. I had taken the month's leeway we had for granted. I could admit I'd been negligent. Orsted had gone to meet with Perugius while I was taking my sweet time. He requested that Perugius support Ariel's bid for the crown, but had been refused. Perugius stubbornly insisted that he would not change his stance until he was certain she was fit for the position. You have some serious balls, Lord Perugius. You seem pretty terrified of Orsted, but you still rebuffed him in no uncertain terms. Could I admire you for that? That aside, I told Orsted about Luke's visit. I also mentioned that his plea for help could be on the man-god's behalf and brought up how worried I was about helping Ariel out. Finally, I asked him if he had any intention of changing his original plan.
No, we will make Ariel king.
He dismissed the possibility that the man-god wanted this outcome. Ariel being on the throne was of paramount importance to him. When I asked how we should deal with Luke, Orsted didn't have an immediate answer. After several minutes of contemplation, he finally mumbled,
Perhaps we should kill him.
I gaped. Those were terrifying words to just say casually. You're going to kill him? Orsted was silent, but the look on his face was terrifying. Wait, no, that's just how he always looks. He dropped his gaze to the table and stared, or glared, as far as I was concerned, at one specific spot. Yep, I changed my mind. He's definitely making a scary face.
There's no telling what one of the man-god's apostles might do. Killing him would be the best way to eradicate any uncertainty.
I guess so. Kill Luke? I should have already steeled myself to do whatever was necessary, but I couldn't stop my stomach from nodding in anxiety. Luke was working so hard to help Ariel, and we were going to kill him? Despite everything I had achieved and done, I had never killed anyone before. Sure, a bunch of bandits got caught in my spell back when we were in Begarit, and some of them probably died, but I hadn't looked them in the eyes as I did it. So my first kill was going to be Luke? This was going to be my introduction to murder? The thought made my blood run cold. At the same time, part of me felt like I had no other choice. If he was going to be an enemy and pose a threat to my family and I, it was best to get rid of him. I couldn't let my emotions get in the way. It might come back later to bite me in the butt. But can I really justify taking someone's life simply because I had no other choice? I wasn't trying to preach morality here, but the idea didn't sit right with me. I was clearly more opposed to the idea of killing than I even realized, considering how much I recoiled at the thought. We're not sure that he's one of the man-god's apostles yet, right?
No. Given the timing of Luke's actions, there can be no doubt that he is.
What do you mean by that?
Their attempts to negotiate with Perugius have not completely fallen through yet, and news about the king falling sick has yet to reach them. Yet Luke chose this particular moment to seek you out. It's clearly the man-god's doing.
He really does despise the man-god with every fiber of his being. In that case, why would he ask me to help Ariel? Shouldn't he be doing the opposite? If he doesn't want Ariel to be king, then he should be trying to keep me away from her.
He likely seeks to control someone from Asura Kingdom in order to lead us into a trap. Right now, the man-god cannot see you directly, which is why he's using Luke. It's his way of keeping an eye on you. Think of it like someone putting their ear to a wall to hear what's happening on the other side.
So Luke is monitoring me?
It's possible that's not all he's doing. There's a chance he might try something at some point. It's a safer bet to get rid of him.
It was possible that I might give away Orsted's aim through my actions or words. Little wonder, then, why the man-god decided to have someone surveil me. It would be impossible to keep Luke entirely out of the loop as I assisted Ariel with her goal. Let's assume for a moment that we did kill Luke. Are you sure this won't negatively impact Her Highness or anyone else?
What do you mean?
I started analyzing the possible repercussions of murdering Luke based off what Orsted had told me before. You mentioned some guy, Derek Redman, I think was his name, was originally supposed to become Prime Minister, but he's no longer with us. With his absence, it's highly likely Ariel is completely dependent upon Luke for moral support. Ariel certainly did rely on him. Although she had other retainers like Sylphie, Luke played the biggest role among her immediate supporters. It wasn't affection or romance, but something similar to the bond I shared with Cliff and Zenoba. No matter what happened, I was confident they would never betray me. Ariel likely felt the same way about Luke. The man-god may have considered that we'd discover his connection with Luke. Perhaps his entire aim is to goad us into killing him. There was no telling what might happen to Ariel if Luke died. Humans were weak. No matter how tough they seemed on the outside, they were fragile enough to fall apart under the right conditions. I had some personal experience with this. I'd completely lost my way, lost sight of myself when Paul died. Of course, if all we wanted was a puppet, perhaps we would be better off without Luke. I studied Orsted's expression as I conducted my internal debate. The man finally nodded in agreement, his face no less terrifying than it had been before.
That's perfectly possible. The Ariel that I knew valued Luke greatly. Without him, she may not succeed on the path towards kingship.
Clearly, he also didn't want a lifeless doll on the throne. So I think we should leave Luke to his own devices for the moment. Yeah, okay, that was partly because I didn't want to kill him. But Luke was also one of Sylphie's best friends, as well as my cousin. The two of us weren't very close, but we had enough of a connection that I didn't want him dead. On top of that, I also had a personal aversion to killing in the first place.
All right, we'll do as you advised then.
Thank you. I dodged a bullet there, but we might still have to kill Luke in the end. If it came down to that, Sylphie might resent me for it. It might even lead to a divorce. That thought made my stomach knot up. Even so, I had to steel myself, just in case I had to cross that bridge eventually. Anyway, that takes care of the business with Luke. While I was on the subject, there were some other questions on my mind, too. You mentioned before that the man-god can't control a bunch of people at once, right? About how many can he control at once, then? Orsted had briefly mentioned in passing that the man-god couldn't control a whole crowd at once. But that meant he could control more than one, right?
I cannot give you a precise number, but it's most likely around 3 people.
Only 3? Huh? Less than I expected. And what are the odds that he can control more than that?
Not impossible, but when he attempted to kill me, he only employed 3 people to do so. None of the others came directly after me. We are probably safe to assume it's just 3.
Which 3 were these?
The Sword God, the North God, and the Demon King.
And apparently Orsted had turned the tables on all of them. A Demon King in addition to 2 of the 7 great powers, huh? If even that kind of firepower wasn't enough to get rid of Orsted, it's no wonder the man-god gave up on that route. If he sixed those kinds of people on me, I probably wouldn't stand a chance. Although if he could have, he probably already would have. I suspected he was instead slowly altering people's destinies over long periods, as he did with me. He'd probably be a big fan of Rube Goldberg machine videos. I wonder why he can only take control of 3...
Because that's the limit of his foresight abilities.
You mean he can only look into 3 people's futures at any time, and any more than that is impossible?
Correct.
I wondered if that meant he might be able to control 4 people, assuming he didn't look into their futures. Nah, someone who can cheat and look into the future would never gamble by giving up that specific power. It was reasonable to assume he would only control 3 people and no more. So if Luke is one of those three, that means he's got two others under his control.
There's no evidence at all that he is controlling 3 people right now.
You may be right, but I think there's a good chance that he's got at least one person under his thumb in the Asura Kingdom.
Why do you think that?
If the man god truly doesn't want Ariel to take the throne, then it makes sense for him to control someone who opposes her and someone working alongside her. Perfect for collecting and disseminating information, right?
The man god doesn't need to go that far to... No, I suppose there is some value in reporting your movements to the opposition.
Despite his initial dismissal, Orsted managed to talk himself into agreeing with me. But now that I thought about it, the man god could see into people's hearts. Perhaps he didn't need to gather information. Although Ariel's future prospects were obscured from his view thanks to my presence, having someone who could keep an eye on us was more than enough for him. It's perfectly possible he's involved in something else entirely, like maybe he's waiting to attack my family when I leave the house or something.
With the sacred beast serving as your family's guardian, the man god cannot readily go after them. That creature has enough power that you needn't worry about that.
More than Araman Fee?
Perugius's spirits don't even begin to compare.
It was hard to believe what he was saying when Leo had yet to prove himself, but this was the dragon god speaking. Surely, I could trust what he was saying. Honestly, I had no way of knowing either way.
I digress. You are likely right about the man god having a puppet in the kingdom.
Then the key to victory will be sniffing this person out, I assume.
Indeed, I know nothing of his third apostle, assuming he even has one. It could be that this person is operating separately and is unrelated to the Asuran throne. Keep your guard up.
In order to achieve victory against the man god, we had to identify his 3 puppets, defeat them, and accomplish our own objectives in the process. We would probably have to repeat this process again and again. Our current goal was getting Ariel on the throne. Although it wasn't confirmed, Luke was most likely one of his lackeys. The identities of the other 2 remained a mystery. Is there anyone you know with absolute certainty is not on his side? I asked this knowing I was asking for the impossible. It didn't really matter who the man god's puppets were. Our objectives wouldn't change. Still, if he assumed control over Zenoba or Cliff and Orsted tasked me with killing them, I wouldn't know what to do. I'd be devastated.
Your family is safe from his influence. In addition to the bracelet you wear, they are also under the guardian beast's protection.
And what about Cliff and Zenoba?
They could be possible targets. Be careful around them.
Seriously? That was not the answer I wanted to hear. Is there anything we can do to make sure they don't fall into his grasp?
No. If you find it necessary, you could warn them against heeding the words of someone who calls themselves the man god, though I doubt it would do you any good.
No good, huh? Well, that puts me in a pickle. It was a problem of chance. The man god didn't attach himself to anyone and everyone. All I could do was pray to a different god that Zenoba and Cliff wouldn't become one of his targets. For the moment, I should work on getting Perugius' support to help Ariel on the path to kingship, right? That plan hasn't changed?
Correct, though you should remain wary of the man god's apostle. If he starts proposing something, inform me immediately.
Very well. At least our plan of attack remained the same for the moment. In any case, it seems like Ariel has worked herself into quite the corner. From what I can tell, she has nothing with which to sway Perugius' opinion. The last time I was with the 2 of them, I believe he asked her what the necessary element for being a king is, and she wasn't able to answer adequately.
Yes. How very like Perugius to ask such a question.
Do you happen to know the answer? Orsted glared at me. Eep, you don't have to give me the evil eye. I get it. This is a hurdle she needs to overcome if she wants to be king, right?
I have no idea. However, the only person Perugius ever supported for the throne was Gaunis Frian Asura. If you research him, you should be able to find a clue to lead you in the right direction.
Wait, so you don't know either? Well, I guess you gave me a hint at least.
All right, then I shall be off to see it done.
It was the trump card I would use to get in contact with Ariel. Before I left, Orsted lent me one of his magical items. I say lend because he called it a gift, but I thought of it as equipment for work. It was a robe, and conveniently gray even though I had no part in its creation. It was a little darker than the one I had been wearing.
That robe was worn by the great sage Titiana a millennium ago. It's made from a death adder rat skin, woven with magically imbued thread. It has high magic resistance and is stab-proof. It likely became a magical item after being left in a labyrinth for an extended period, where it developed the ability to reduce the wearer's weight by half, meaning one can move like the wind if needed. Since you cannot use battle aura, it should prove useful.
If his words were to be believed, it was quite the incredible item. So, what kind of price would something like this fetch?
I took this from the Dragon Folks repository in the past few days since we last met. It would net you a decent amount if you sold it, but I am giving it to you so that you can protect yourself. Wear it.
Oof, he read me like a book. I wondered what the Dragon Folks repository was. Did they have a bunch of items like this stored in there? They probably did. I could just picture it boots that could open any treasure chest they kicked, a trumpet that could uncover hidden rooms. At any rate, this robe would increase my combat proficiency. It was certainly a huge step down from my magic armor, but I could bridge that gap with my own knowledge and courage. Wait, but I have neither of those things. Oh, well, guess I'll just have to try my best anyway. That night, I summoned Sylphie to my room. If I was going to help Ariel, I needed to speak with my wife first. Sylphie must have sensed it was a serious matter because when she showed up, she was in her normal clothes rather than pajamas. That was fine with me, considering the topic I was about to broach.
Well, Rudy, what is it you wanted to talk about?
I could hardly blame her for being wary. The last few times I formally called her here, it had been to relay what she must have thought was crazy talk. Sylphie, I am going to be direct.
All right.
I have been ordered to help Princess Ariel on her path to becoming king. She scowled suspiciously, then her face lit up, but almost as quickly she was back to furrowing her brow again.
Ordered?
That's right.
Which means you're not doing it of your own free will.
Orsted's the one calling the shots. Her demeanor changed completely. I had waffled back and forth between telling her the truth about Orsted's involvement, but I had so much guilt about things I had done to her in the past. This time, at least, I wanted to trust her and speak the truth. This was one of her close friends we were talking about here. Sylphie gaped at me for a moment before snapping her jaw shut and narrowing her eyes.
And what is his motive for making Princess Ariel king? Does he stay?
It will give him connections to Asura Kingdom through me. It doesn't seem like he wants something right now, but he may ask for assistance in the future.
But he's the dragon god, the same one who beat you senseless even when you used your magic armor. I realize Asura Kingdom is regarded as the most powerful country in the world, but I still can't see why someone like him would want to foster such relations with them.
There are some matters that can only be resolved by political influence and not force alone. It's only natural that Orsted would want that at his disposal, so he can make use of it when he needs it. This was merely groundwork. It was hard to explain, but making Ariel king now would allow him to reap the benefits in another 100 years. Orsted had an overall picture of how the future was supposed to play out. I had no idea how he would eventually make use of Ariel or if he would even utilize her at all. What I did know, based on what I'd read in my future self's journal, was that Ariel becoming king would inconvenience the man-god. Thus, we would place her on the throne. Sure, part of this was to get under the man-god's skin, but it was also a basic tenet of war not to let your opponent have their way. The whole plan meant far more to Orsted than me. In fact, it meant almost nothing to me. As far as I was concerned, the minuses outweighed the pluses. If I helped Ariel assume the throne, everyone would label me as one of her supporters, and that meant getting pulled into the sticky, corrupt mess that was aristocratic politics. Personally, getting a foot in the kingdom's door wasn't worth getting wrapped up in that.
No, my desire to help Ariel was purely personal. She had been there for me a lot, and it was time to repay her for that.
Perhaps it was better not to think of pros and cons, but instead look at it in simpler terms. Ariel would be overjoyed if she became king. Sylphie would be overjoyed if her close friend managed to achieve her goal. And if we managed to stop the man god from having his way, Orsted would be satisfied. I stood to benefit too. Sylphie's love for me would deepen, and Orsted would be convinced of my usefulness. Yeah, that's the best way to think of it. Well, Orsted's future demands aside, at this point, I think Princess Ariel only stands to benefit.
Well, yes, I guess you're right. There are many unsavory characters in Asura Kingdom, and if we think of it as pitting villains against villains, it's not a bad move.
Yikes. Sylphie wasn't pulling any punches. I wondered what she really thought of Orsted. I could admit he looked like a bad guy, but did he look even more menacing and untrustworthy than I thought? Did he seem like the type of person who might kill someone upon first meeting them? Okay, I can't really argue that last one.
Princess Ariel should be the one to decide if we should accept his aid or not. Personally, I want a guarantee that he won't betray us.
A guarantee?
Yes. Why do you seem so sure he won't stab us in the back?
I actually wasn't. In fact, he did seem to be hiding something from me, but he seemed more trustworthy than the man god, at least. If I summoned him, he came immediately. It's not that I think he won't, but I do think he's sincere in his dealings with me. As long as I don't work against him and continue to make myself useful, I don't think he'll be our enemy.
If you say so. All right. I'll drop the matter of whether Orsted can be trusted or not, at least for now.
Are you sure?
Continuing our debate won't do any good, will it? And it seems like you trust him.
Yeah, true.
We'd just have an endless verbal tug-of-war if we kept at it. More importantly, I think we should discuss what your plans are. How do you, or rather, how does Orsted intend to make her king?
Sylphie was being unusually serious. Right now, she wasn't here as my wife, but as Ariel's bodyguard. It was a side of her I rarely caught a glimpse of. Her expression, coupled with her natural boyish nature, made her look like a distinguished nobleman. For now, we intend to persuade Lord Perugius to back her.
But if it's between a dragon king and a dragon god, wouldn't the latter, that is, Orsted, be higher ranking? Yet he still wants to convince Perugius to help us.
Lord Perugius has greater political influence in Asura Kingdom, and his words hold more weight with the people there. In contrast, Orsted has absolutely no authority in Asura. I was only repeating what the man himself had told me.
But Lord Perugius doesn't seem likely to bend easily. No matter what Princess Ariel says, he won't give her the time of day. Luke and I have tried to convince him on her behalf, but to no avail.
Yeah, things do look pretty rough. Perugius had even refused to honor Orsted's request to help her. I thought he would have heeded any order, given how much he seemed to fear the Dragon King. But he clearly had his own opinions about the situation.
But Sonoba seems to have gotten on his good side. He even seems to have taken a liking to you as well, Rudy. I wonder what the difference is.
If I had to guess, I would say it's because the two of us aren't trying to become kings.
Does trying to take a crown offend him somehow?
A bit simplistic, but not far off from Perugius's personal view of kings.
I wonder if he never had any intention of aiding her to begin with.
No, if that were the case, he would have refused her outright. He seems to be testing her.
Really?
At any rate, I'd appreciate it if you'd allow me to talk to Princess Ariel directly in the next few days. Do you mind?
Sure. I'll set things up for you. I'll let Luke know as well. The two of us will...
Fine with me. Although, I would like to keep Orsted's involvement a secret and frame it as me helping, because you and Luke convinced me to do so. Can you do that?
Why would we hide the truth about Orsted? Since you're his subordinate now, it might give Princess Ariel peace of mind to know you're doing this under orders.
In other words, she'd feel relieved to hear she had the Dragon God's support. However, I didn't want the Man God's apostle Luke, that is, to have any more information than was absolutely necessary, even though we had yet to confirm whether he was a puppet or not. The Man God's eyes and ears could be anywhere. I'd like to keep Orsted's objectives and orders discreet.
Orsted is fighting this man god person, right? Is he really that evil?
Evil or not, he tried to kill Roxy, tried to go after you, and tried to kill me off by pitting me against Orsted. He's our enemy.
What? He tried to go after me? Is he still after me?
She jerked her head around, surveying our surroundings. I couldn't say, but I doubt he's given up.
In that case, I'll keep my guard up.
Especially at night.
The only person in this town who would try to go after me at night is you, Rudy.
Well, she's got me there. Maybe I should do just that tonight. In any case, at least we managed to work out a plan for me to meet Ariel.
So, Rudy...
I thought the conversation was over, but Sylphie continued.
If you're going to help Her Highness, that means you'll be going to Asura Kingdom as well, right?
Yes, I'm sure I will. I can't very well convince Perugius to help, and then send her off and rinse my hands of the matter. Plus, I would need to defeat whatever apostle the man god had lying in wait in the kingdom. I also needed to hunt down this Tristina person, which meant I didn't even need to consult Orsted about whether I needed to go or not. Clearly, I would have to.
I want you to take me along as well.
What?
I know you probably want me to stay here and look after Lucy. I also know that Princess Ariel and Luke want me to continue living here in Sharia. But honestly, I want to help out. I have been with them for so long now. Please, Rudy. I want you to take me with you.
She reached over and took my hand, her soft fingers curling tightly around mine. I squeezed her hand. Frankly, I wanted her to stay. That was probably my own selfishness talking, but I wanted her to be where it was safe, where she could look after Lucy. Don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those guys who think a woman's lot in life is to stand silently behind her man. It was just, I couldn't explain it, but I didn't want Sylphie to be in danger. Still, Sylphie had spent years with Ariel and Luke. They'd been companions since the displacement incident. They were to her what Ruigerd was to me, and if Ruigerd ever found himself in a tight spot, I would drop everything to rush to his aid. I owed him that much after how much he had done for me. Sure, I would hesitate if I had to weigh helping him against protecting the lives of my family, but he was still one of my top priorities. I was sure Sylphie felt the same about Ariel and the others. Family was still important to her, and she knew she had to help raise Lucy. Even so, if her friends needed help, she wanted to do everything in her power to be there for them. That was only natural. All right, lend me your assistance then, Sylphie.
Okay.
Sylphie's face lit up, her mouth widening into a grin. It was then that I recalled what the man god had said to me, that Sylphie was destined to die in Asura Kingdom. I hated considering the possibility, but would this end up shortening her lifespan? Was I overthinking this? The course of history had been altered. Things might not go down the way they did in my future self's diary. Still, I had to say it. Sylphie.
Yes?
The man god won't get directly involved, but he will use other people to get in our way.
You mean like how he used you to fight Orsted?
Exactly.
Then we should be wary of anyone that might be under his control.
Right? But, well, it could be someone close to you.
Someone close to me? Like who?
Like Luke.
Rudy, that's out of the question. If Orsted is working to make Princess Ariel king, then the man god will try to undermine that, right? Which means he'll be trying to stop her, so there's no way he would go after Luke. Luke would never ever turn on Princess Ariel.
The man god might find a way to sweet-talk him into it. He has a way of corrupting people. Sylphie glared at me. I sensed murderous hostility in her gaze. This was probably the first time I'd ever seen her look at me that way.
If Luke loses sight of myself and tries to hurt Her Highness, then I will kill him.
She said it with such resolve that it sent a chill through me. This was the first time I had ever thought of her as terrifying.
Neither Luke nor I ever want to betray Her Highness. I am sure he'd rather die than be deceived by someone and stab her in the back. I would too.
I could understand how she felt. If I ever did anything that hurt Rue Jerd, even Eris might turn on me. It was the same thing here. I see. Sorry for bringing that up out of the blue.
No, there's no need for you to apologize. I appreciate you warning me.
She smiled quietly. Seeing that expression on her face helped me finally steel myself. If a time ever came when Luke needed to die, I couldn't let it be by Sylphie's hands. I would need to be the one to do the deed. Chapter 5. Working Together. When I arrived at the floating fortress, Ariel was out in the garden having a tea party. Silveril was serving, but Perugius was nowhere in sight. Instead, Nanahoshi was the one sitting across from Her Highness. She must not feel very worried about her situation if she can have a tea party, I thought, but just as quickly I realized I was mistaken. Ariel wore the exhausted face of an overworked salaryman. Huh, matches perfectly with the exhaustion I saw on Luke's face. Ariel put effort into pasting an elegant smile on her face, but she couldn't hide the circles under her eyes. She must be feeling cornered. The way she eyed Nanahoshi screamed, "Come on, ask me what's wrong. Ask me." Nanahoshi ignored her completely. In fact, she seemed uncomfortable just sitting there. She wouldn't outright refuse an invitation to have tea, but at the same time it was clear she didn't want to be dragged into the messy situation between Ariel and Perugius. If ever there was a poster girl for the lazy protagonist archetype, it'd be Nanahoshi. The only reason she didn't flee the scene was because Ariel had offered her assistance when she was on death's door. Even if Ariel only lent us the use of her magical implement, that still qualified as help.
Oh, Rudeus, mind coming over here and sitting for a few?
Her expression relaxed the moment she spotted me. I sat myself between the two girls. Salvarel took the opportunity to pour me a cup of tea. The cup clattered as she slammed it down before me, which was unusually violent for someone as refined as her. I glanced up at her, and I could feel the coldness emanating from behind her mask. Perhaps she was angry about my mistaken summoning of Arumanaphi. Sorry about that.
Okay, Rudeus, please go ahead.
Sylphie mumbled as she took up position behind Ariel. Ariel looked a bit more relaxed thanks to her presence. I looked around and noticed Luke in the background. I had spoken with him prior to our arrival. I told him that I would cooperate with the princess, and he was absolutely overjoyed, showering Sylphie with compliments for managing to persuade me.
Oh, well, Lord Rudeus, it's been quite a while. I would congratulate you on becoming Dragon God Orsted's subordinate, but I must ask, are you sure that was the right choice?
Her words lacked their usual vigor. She was being vague. Perhaps Sylphie had already badmouthed Orsted to her. Thank you. Being in the employ of someone powerful provides a certain peace of mind. That goes for anyone. Not just me. Not just me.
You're quite powerful yourself. I suppose people of like power tend to be drawn to one another. Someone like that wouldn't even give me the time of day.
Oh, boy. She's really selling herself short. Looks like things are headed in a pretty grim direction.
Hey, Orsted came to see me yesterday.
Nanahoshi whispered, poking me in the side. Yeah? And?
I apologized to him and he forgave me. Told me he hoped to continue our relationship.
Good to hear. It was a short conversation, but Nanahoshi looked like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. People often remarked that if saying sorry were all it took to solve matters, police wouldn't need to exist. But I would argue most things could be solved by a sincere apology. Personally, I wouldn't be willing to forgive someone who had tricked me, led me into a trap, and nearly got me killed. But that just demonstrated how generous Orsted was.
I also happened to see Lord Orsted,
said Ariel. Voice as pleasant as a bell. There was something strangely charismatic about her voice that made you want to heed what she said. She was gorgeous as well. Her blonde hair was more radiant than anyone else's that I'd ever seen. She was the embodiment of beauty itself. I was surrounded by plenty of attractive men and women, but if you had to score them objectively, Ariel would come out on top. She was no ordinary beauty. She was like a piece of fine art, like she'd walked out of a painting.
Granted, right now, she lacked her usual energy, but that only gave her the ephemeral luster of an exhausted widow.
Is a terrifying man. I only glimpsed him from afar, but that was enough for all my hair to stand on end, screaming that he was dangerous.
Ah, so she's already seen him. Probably not a good idea to tell her I was operating under his orders then, but perhaps it didn't matter. She already knew I was his subordinate.
That was yesterday. He went home after enjoying some tea with Lady Nanahoshi. He seemed to be in a foul mood the entire time, but when Lady Silvaril spilled some tea on him, he didn't get upset with her at all.
Silvaril spilled tea on Orsted. She couldn't have done that on purpose, right? No, she must have been so terrified that her hand slipped.
The atmosphere seemed incredibly tense, yet Lady Nanahoshi had such a warm smile on her face, one that I'd never seen before. Despite Lord Orsted's appearance and demeanor, he must be quite magnanimous and open-minded.
Wait, seriously? I'm surprised to hear her say that. Maybe the curse isn't as effective on her as everyone else. That works in our favor, at least. Or could this be the man god's doing? Indeed, he stood to benefit the most from controlling her actions. Instead of using Luke to lead her along, why not pull her strings directly since she was in charge of the whole gig? Orsted had never hinted at such a possibility, though. Maybe he had a good reason for believing the man god wouldn't touch her.
Apparently, he's only so hated by everyone because of a curse he bears.
Oh, truly? In that case, perhaps I should have said hello to him. He was intimidating enough from afar that it made my legs tremble. If I heard his voice up close, I might wet myself.
Wet herself?
Although it does feel quite good to relieve yourself in front of people.
Pardon?
Lady Ariel.
I'm pretty sure she just talked about enjoying water sports, but I'll pretend I didn't hear that. Asura's upper crust seemed to be full of perverts. There was something incredibly immoral about hearing a girl so classically picturesque talk about golden showers.
Rudy, wipe that depraved grin off your face. You're in front of the princess. You're in front of the princess.
Yes, ma'am. I put a hand over my mouth. Did my face betray my thoughts so easily? Sure, I was a pervert, but I was really only interested in seeing the girls I liked doing erotic things. Like Sylphie, for example. Not that I was going to ask her to pee in front of me. I didn't want her to hate me. Ugh. Nanahoshi wrinkled her nose, clearly disgusted, but I decided to ignore her.
At any rate, Lord Rudeus, it made perfect sense to me when I heard you were working under Lord Orsted.
Oh, why's that?
Because I believe it would take someone as powerful as him to be able to control someone like you.
Really? I don't think it takes much to control me. All Sylphie had to do when we were in bed at night was say, "Hey, Rudy, I have a favor to ask," and I'd wag my tail like a dog, ready to do whatever. To be clear, I was not expecting that kind of stuff from Ariel. All I needed from her was cold, hard cash. After all, I was the type of man who worked for two things: money and women. Anyway, it was about time we stopped beating around the bush. I was here to talk about cooperation, not chat about Orsted. When you say someone powerful, don't you also mean someone like yourself, Princess Ariel?
Oh, I didn't realize you flattered people like that.
Ariel put a hand over her mouth and narrowed her eyes. It wasn't meant as flattery. Even though I had become desensitized to such titles as of late, Ariel was still the princess of Asura Kingdom. In the terms of my previous life, she was somewhat similar to the Crown Prince of England in status. One might catch a glimpse of her at official ceremonies, but speaking directly to her was out of the question, let alone being able to sit with her at a table like this. That was how important she was. Her status aside, Ariel had been hard at work increasing her influence. Almost every person in a key position in Sharia had some connection with her. They were the principal and vice principal of the academy, the top brass of the Magicians Guild, the head of the Magical Implement Workshop, the top administrator of a company, and the branch leader of the local Adventurers Guild. Those were the connections I personally knew about. One could invoke her name and expect favorable treatment just about anywhere you went.
It was no exaggeration to say her influence could be felt at the top levels of Sharia's key industries.
In short, she didn't lack for connections. She had plenty of power.
I did entertain the idea of having you as my subordinate.
You did ya?
I gave up on that idea quickly, for a number of reasons, but chiefly because your power is too much for me to handle. You hold power beyond yourself, it will be the end of you.
She glanced to the side. Beyond the stunning garden was an expanse of white clouds and open sky, extending into the far distance. She stared off in that direction. As she mumbled to herself, For a moment, I thought she was talking to me, but I was mistaken.
When I was younger, I saw a play in the palace. That was a quote from the great demon Empress Kishirisu.
Ariel turned her attention back toward me and explained. I was pretty sure she'd never said that. It was probably a line someone else had come up with. The little girl I'd met would never be capable of saying a line that clever.
When the Golden Knight Aldebaran defeated her, Kishirika cursed him with those words as she lay dying.
Huh.
Aldebaran became king of the humans after that, but everyone feared him. In the end, his retainers betrayed him and killed him.
This play she'd seen certainly did show the darker side of human nature, but it was quite different from the history I knew.
That play is always performed when one of the royal family celebrates an important milestone in their life.
These milestones were one's 5th, 10th, and 15th birthdays. In Asura Kingdom, these occasions were always celebrated with grand parties. The royal family apparently staged a play as well.
It deviates from history, but I'm told it highlights the frame of mind a royal should have.
So it's not historically accurate, as I suspected. That wasn't surprising. It was completely different from the history I knew. The Golden Knight Aldebaran and Kishirika Kirisu had struck each other down in battle. Wait! No, perhaps I was thinking of the showdown between demonic dragon King Laplace and the fighting god. Oh, well, it's not that important. What frame of mind is that?
The key tenets of what makes a king: fighting, winning, and ruling over one's subjects.
I furrowed my brow.
However, if that's truly all there is to it, why did Aldebaran's people betray and kill him? Was the king who had this play written trying to curse the generation that came after him? When I was younger, I couldn't help having these doubts. It was only when I turned 15 that I suddenly realized, you hold power beyond yourself. It will be the end of you. Too much power will lead one down the path of destruction. Thus, one should only wield as much power as they can control. If one wants to become king, they must be able to master everything they have at their disposal. Even now, I still believe that to be true.
She paused and glanced off into the distance again as she continued.
I'm perfectly aware that you and Lord Perugius are both more than I can handle. I'm going to ask Lord Perugius for his help one more time, but if he refuses me, I think I will give up on trying to convince him.
Ariel hung her head, her long lashes casting shadows over her cheeks. She wore her usual soft smile, but it looked like she was on the verge of tears. You're going to give up?
Yes, it goes without saying that I do not intend to give up on becoming king, but I will cease my efforts to gain his support. While his power may be beyond me, the Asuran throne is not.
I said nothing, but I nearly felt like sighing. She was far too caught up on whether someone was beyond her or not. Princess Ariel.
Yes, what is it, Lord Rudeus?
What part of me do you think is so powerful? Ariel had said I was powerful and special. I had always dreamed of being seen in such a light. But as things stood, I definitely didn't think of myself as extraordinary. That wasn't even a biased view, in my opinion. I had not yet reached a level that could be called impressive.
Oh, if I were to name all your incredible qualities, the list would go on and on. I suppose the biggest one would be your impressive mana pool.
My mana pool, huh? Well, it was true that my mana pool dwarfed most people's. Having the Laplace aspect had blessed me with an impressive one. Perhaps so much so that an ordinary person would never become my equal through effort alone. I could also admit that it had proved beneficial more than once in the past. Still, an expansive mana pool wasn't the solution for everything. All the problems I faced required other solutions. Perhaps if my mana pool could solve every problem I'm facing, I would agree that I'm a powerful person.
What problems are those?
Hard to give a concrete example since these problems are a daily occurrence. Right now, I spend every day worrying how I'm ever going to explain what's going on to my family. I was terrified of the man-god and scared of Orsted as well. I'd glossed over the details and fed lies to my family, having no better idea of how to explain things to them. Yet Ariel said I was powerful? Don't make me laugh. I can't speak for Lord Perugius, but I'm not powerful at least. I am simply the husband of your close friend who happens to have a bigger mana pool than most people, and a lot of odd acquaintances. But I'm just your average magician, really. One who is constantly worried over something. Those were my honest feelings, no matter how embarrassingly cliched it sounded. I reached across the table and took Ariel's hand in mine. Her skin was so soft, and her fingers were so dainty I almost feared they might break in my grip. Sylphie pouted in her corner, but she would have to deal with it for the moment. Princess Ariel, I did not come here today for a simple chat.
You came to talk me up instead?
Ariel kept a gentle smile on her face, not at all flustered that I had suddenly grabbed her hand. I sensed some exhaustion behind it, but it was an otherwise flawless poker face. If that was all it took to sway your heart, that might actually be somewhat appealing. But actually, Luke and Sylphie were the ones who asked me to come here. In an unusual display of alarm, Ariel's head jerked around as she glanced back at the two of them. Sylphie stood firm, while Luke quickly bowed his head. They begged me to help you. Her dainty fingers squeezed around mine like a steel vice, exhibiting far more strength than I thought possible, enough to make me wince.
The two of them said,
I didn't come here to look condescendingly down upon you, scoffing about how you need my help. In fact, it's just the opposite. Won't you please let me work alongside you? A tear fell from Ariel's eyes. It was beautiful, yet strangely I found it surprising that she would cry. Why is that? I wondered.
This is the first time I've ever heard a pickup line that managed to shake me to my core.
Ariel quickly wiped her tears with her free hand. She forced a smile and said it was clear she wasn't joking around. She'd schooled her expression, her cheeks weren't blushing, and she wasn't crying anymore either. She looked every bit the dignified princess.
I admit I would be grateful for the assistance. However, you are Lord Orsted's subordinate now. Yes? Will he really allow you to do such a thing?
She lowered her chin and studied me closely, trying to suss out my intentions. I have already spoken with him about it.
Which means that you are acting on his orders then, yes?
His curse didn't seem completely effective on her, so maybe it wouldn't hurt to answer honestly, but I decided to stick with the plan and keep his aim a secret. No, not at all. I was the one who said I wanted to help you, and he told me I was free to do as I wished.
All right, very well. Be sure to convey my gratitude to him then.
Sylphie pursed her lips, unhappy at how I'd handled things, but this was how it had to be.
In that case, I look forward to having your support,
And I look forward to working with you. We readjusted our grip on each other's hands and shook on it. Now that we have that settled, time to move on to the details. If we're going to make you king, we could enlist Lord Orsted's help in the matter, but frankly, he doesn't hold much sway in Asura Kingdom. I don't think he would be much help to you. As such, I think Lord Perugius's help will be crucial.
Agreed.
Ariel said solemnly, sitting up straighter in her chair. Perhaps I was only imagining it, but Sylphie and Luke looked more serious now than they had a few minutes ago. Orsted had also mentioned that convincing Perugius to support Ariel was paramount, which only further reinforced how much authority Perugius held in Asura. The problem was how to go about persuading him. Perugius posed a question to us before, which was, what is the most important quality a king must have? If you can bring me that answer yourself, then I will give you my support. I said, reciting what I remembered of our previous conversation with Perugius. Ariel's eyes twitched. She had racked her brain over and over for the answer to that question. I wonder what kind of response he really wants. Previously, Ariel had answered, they're wise, listen to their cabinet ministers, and don't forget their position in society, but Perugius dismissed that as incorrect. He then turned the question to me, and I answered, I think I'd prefer a ruler who can put themselves in the shoes of the common folk, rather than someone who relies on their own abilities. Perugius had called that response preferable, but that suggested it wasn't the correct answer either. If Orsted was to be believed, Derek Redbat must have found the correct answer to this challenge when it was posed to him. Orsted had also suggested the answer likely had something to do with Gani's free and Asura. Of course, since history had been changed, there was no guarantee that Derek had answered the same question as the one we now faced, but it was worth investigating. If memory serves, King Gani's was a close friend of Lord Perugius's, right?
Yes, the story of their friendship is famous. Lord Perugius also seems very nostalgic when he comes up in conversation.
In that case, whatever this quality is, King Gani's must have possessed it. Correct?
Perhaps.
You can look into him, can't you? There should be some records about him. I thought my suggestion was foolproof, but for whatever reason, Ariel and her 2 bodyguards looked less than enthused.
I hate to break this to you.
What? Did I say something weird?
No, but we've already looked into King Gani's. We found nothing of note in the archives on this floating fortress, nor in Renoa's library.
Ah, so they'd already tried that route. That made sense. Perugius's relationship with Gani's was known far and wide. It would be stranger if they hadn't followed that lead.
If we could check the National Library in Asura, there might be something he published that might give us better insight. But
True. The best place to find information on an Asuran king would be in the kingdom's library. But for obvious reasons, we'd find it difficult to pay a visit to the place right now. Well, that is troubling. In that case, perhaps it would be better to ask about Derek instead. How would I make such an inquiry, though? They would all find it strange that I even knew about him to begin with.
Before we discuss this any further, are you sure this is all right? Lord Perugius can hear everything we're saying.
Ariel glanced briefly at Silveril. And I suspect he finds the whole thing entertaining.
I worry that he may not permit us to discuss this matter as a group.
Ha, that's what she means. Ariel thought he might want her to think on it and come up with an answer on her own. I, on the other hand, wasn't so sure that was his aim. I glanced at Silveril. She fluttered her wings gently before saying, "It matters not to Lord Perugius how you arrive at your answer. If it is the correct one, he will lend you his support." The words were left unspoken, but her tone said it all. That should be a given. He is, after all, a very magnanimous person.
Do you mean to say that I should have consulted others from the very beginning?
Silvaril nodded. In fact, Lord Perugius was deeply puzzled as to why you were trying to solve it on your own to begin with.
I backed myself into a corner by overthinking it. I see.
She muttered to herself, then stood up, her spirits renewed. She lifted her arms, catching her blonde hair on the way up. It fell back across her shoulders as she stretched, hands clasped in the air. She then cracked her neck and clapped her cheeks. Not the kind of behavior you'd expect from a princess. Sometimes people could limit themselves by overthinking. They were often burdened by the belief that things had to be a certain way and that there were no alternatives. Those preconceptions and biases often led people away from the correct path. It was only when a person realized they were mistaken, when they realized there were several ways of accomplishing the same thing, that their field of view expanded and let them feel freer than they'd ever been. I had experienced something similar when Roxy dragged me outside for the first time.
All right, Sylphie, Luke, take your seats.
As you command.
All right.
The two happily settled at the table, which only made Nanahoshi feel even more awkward.
Now then, let's begin our meeting.
Ariel said, exuding the same confidence I had seen from her when I first met her. Should I start clapping? No, I'd better not. Before we begin, I would like to make sure we are all on the same page. Do you mind? Instead, I raised my hand and said,
Same page?
What I mean to say is, I don't really know much about you, Your Highness.
I suppose not. Well, what is it you wish to know?
Her cheeks flushed, and Sylphie stared meaningfully at me. Oh, come on. I'm not asking for her vital stats here. I'm trying to have a serious conversation. First, if you wouldn't mind sharing, I would like to hear why you want to become king. I knew she wanted to become king, but I had only picked up bits and pieces about her motivations. She mentioned something about how many people had died for her. I assumed Derek was probably one of them.
I am fairly certain I already told you what my motivations are.
What? What? You did?
Yes, when you and Sylphie got married.
Is that right? Well, I'd like you to remind me regardless.
I told you that I wouldn't be able to face the people who believed in me and died for me if I didn't become king.
I see. So you're doing it for the people who sacrificed their lives for you. Could you tell me more about these individuals?
Is that somehow relevant to our current problem?
She smiled and tilted her head. I know a look of rejection when I see one. She doesn't want to talk about it. I don't know if it has any relevance or not, but from where I'm standing, it seems like Lord Perugius is testing you. In that case, maybe if we dig through your history and motivations, we might find clues that will lead us to the answer we seek.
I see what you mean.
I was just throwing that out as an excuse, but it actually made some sense. Frankly, I had no idea what made a true king, or whatever Perugius wanted to call it. I knew squat about kings, aside from what I'd read in a novel long ago. I remembered a line that went something like, "A king lives for his people. No, it's more than that. He exists to guide the people." My ignorance on the topic meant that racking my brain over the question wouldn't be very productive.
Very well then. I should warn you that there were many who died. We lost an especially great number when we fled Asura. 13, to be precise. The 4 knights were Alistair, Callum, Dominic, and Cedric. The 3 mages were Kevin, Johann, and Babette. My 6 retainers were Marcellin, Bernadette, Edwina, Florence, and Corinne. I doubt I will ever forget their names as long as I live. Our journey was brutal. We fought together and overcame so many obstacles. Every single one of them desperately desired that I become king and died trying to make that happen.
Wait, what? Derek isn't even among the names she listed. That's odd. Orsted had mentioned that Derek had died, but Ariel hadn't even brought him up. Maybe he wasn't that important to her. Perhaps he would have learned a clue from the 13 she just mentioned, had he been alive. Tell me more about each one of them.
Very well. It will take quite some time to do so. Are you all right with that?
I don't mind. Every single one of them must have been important, so I would hate to skip any of them. As soon as I said that, the atmosphere became less tense. Ariel grinned as Luke gaped in surprise. For whatever reason, Sylphie appeared to be smiling proudly. Nanahoshi was the only one who seemed uncomfortable.
All right. In that case...
Ariel slowly began opening up about the 13 people she had lost. She filled me in on where they were born, how they were raised, and how she came to meet them all. She also went into their likes and dislikes, their personalities, what they were most proud of, what conversations they had, what made them laugh, what made them angry, and what made them cry. She spared no details, even told me about who got along with who liked who, and who hated who. Finally, she explained how each of them died. Each person had their own share of drama, but they were all real people who had lived and died. The conversation told me all I needed to know about each of the 13. Sylphie and Luke also chimed in here and there with their own recollections of the deceased. All 3 had a wealth of information they could share about the group they lost, so well did they remember them. I suspected the 2 other girls that served Ariel, who weren't currently present, could do the same. My future self said Sylphie left to join Ariel because she'd become disenchanted with him, but I personally wondered if she wouldn't have left regardless. The bonds shared by their group were so strong I couldn't discount that possibility. I was honestly a little jealous. They gave their lives for Ariel, died protecting her. The weight of that was something I knew all too well, and I thought it was a good thing that Sylphie knew it too.
That is all.
Interesting. Sadly, nothing she'd said seemed related to what it took to be a true king. In a way, the bond she had with them seemed evidence enough to me that she was fit for the role. King Arthur's Round Table also had 13 seats, after all. Okay, sure, if you include the survivors, it doesn't actually come out to 13, but still.
Oh, goodness, I did forget someone else who was very important.
This is what I was waiting for. It's gotta be.
Derek read that.
See? I knew it! This was what I was waiting for. I kept quiet, waiting for her to go on, but Ariel merely drew her brows together as her face scrunched. What's the matter?
Oh, it's just, to tell you the truth, I suddenly realized that I didn't really know him that well.
Ugh, great. So he kicked the bucket before he got close with her. That was a problem. She might have had more to say about him if, as in the original timeline, the two had fought side by side and built trust as they both put their lives on the line. But alas, she didn't. If the two had built no memories together, then she wouldn't know what kind of person he was, and I wouldn't be able to use that information to figure out how he managed to sway Perugius. Do you remember anything about him at all? Doesn't matter if it seems insignificant. You said he was someone important, so there had to be something, right? My only option was to push her for answers.
Let's see. He was a very serious and professional person.
Ariel continued adding some details, but he sounded pretty, well, normal to me. Just your average smarty-pants magician. He was a nitpicking busybody, the type that always sighed in exasperation at his friend's antics. When Ariel went off and did things on her own, he looked at her with a judgmental eye and called her out on it. The picture she painted of him reminded me of Cliff. Or perhaps he was more like Vice Principal Genius. At any rate, he was basically the equivalent of a nosy grandparent always fussing over Ariel's future.
At the time, my behavior was not befitting one worthy of sitting upon the throne. I lived an indolent lifestyle. I didn't even dream about becoming king. That was when the displacement incident happened. A beast suddenly appeared, and Derek died protecting me. His last wish was that I become king. That was why I started down this path.
I see. Nothing she described told me about his frame of mind or what he was striving for, which was unfortunate because she had told me more than enough about the 13 that died on her journey here. This conversation hadn't yielded any hints either. There has to be something, I thought. Some way to draw out the information I need. As I was humming to myself, contemplating a solution, someone suddenly spoke up.
Come to think of it, he never doubted that Princess Ariel would be the next king. He took every opportunity he could to suggest that she should take the throne. Perhaps he knew the answer, knew what makes one a true king. That would explain why he was so confident that she would become king, because he knew she possessed that quality.
He struck a sultry pose, putting his hand to his chin as he recalled what he knew. Good job, Luke. It made sense when I thought about it. Luke, like Ariel, had been close with Derek. But I have to be careful about what he says. It's possible he's only sharing this based on advice he received from the man-god. It was best to assume that anything Luke suggested might be dangerous, even if the man himself meant no harm.
Interesting. That certainly is possible.
She nodded, as though the words Derek had said to her finally made sense with this added context.
Unfortunately, he's no longer with us.
Everyone went quiet. We had no way of knowing what Derek was thinking. As the silence stretched, the atmosphere grew heavier. Perhaps we had spent too much time dwelling on those lost to us. Well, at any rate, let's keep thinking on it and see if we can come up with other clues. My words did nothing to alleviate the gloomy air that had settled over the table. In the end, we came up with no constructive options that day. Chapter 6, Orsted's Suggestion. And that's how it went. After my meeting with Ariel, I immediately took off to meet Orsted and relay what had been discussed. If Luke was the man-god's messenger, I was Orsted's. I would brief him on every little detail. In essence, I was an informant. Rudeus the tattletale, you might say.
So they already looked into information on Gonis.
What should we do next? I asked, despite half expecting him to glare at me and tell me to think for myself sometimes. Just to be clear, I wasn't the type who sought the approval of others for every little thing I did, all right? I intended to be as independent as I could, but I had only become Orsted's subordinate recently. I wasn't yet sure what needed to be reported to him and what could be handled on my own. While I was figuring out that boundary, I was largely deferring to him for most matters on our current mission. I didn't want him snapping at me for doing things without getting his input first.
Also, I was asking for his opinion, not seeking a concrete answer. He didn't have to spell out everything for me. He just needed to point me in the right direction. In this way, I would slowly learn how he wanted to handle matters. Plus, I did have a suggestion handy if he told me to think for myself. Orsted and I could use teleportation circles to infiltrate the Asuran library, where we could swipe the necessary materials. That was what I had planned if he had no other suggestions.
You should head to the library labyrinth in that case.
His answer caught me off guard. I tilted my head. Library labyrinth? What the heck is that?
A labyrinth where copies of books from all over the world are stored.
Orsted saw the confusion on my face, he explained. Mushoku Tensei Volume 16 by Reincarnation Namagonote. Cast by Artel Studio. If you are interested in creating your own audio drama like this, please visit artel.ai and use promotion code ARTEL to activate your account. Now enjoy the story. I never knew something like that existed. How are those books copied?
A certain bookworm demon king uses the power of their demon eye to copy them.
Considering that the first people that came to my mind when he said Demon King were Budigadi and Atafe, I imagine this person was similar, someone with an obnoxious laugh and 8 arms, each one holding a volume of manga. Part of me wondered why anyone would do that with the library, but when Orsted said it was a Demon King, somehow that was all the explanation I needed. Well, it does sound like it must be pretty useful. If the library had every book from all over the world, that meant it had contained a huge amount of intel. Sure, there was information out there that never made it into books, but a vast majority of it did. It was like Wikipedia but for magic. You could probably find information on just about anything you wanted in there.
Not quite. The place isn't organized at all.
Oh, okay. Having a wealth of information meant little if you couldn't systematically search for what you were looking for. Dictionaries only worked because they were ordered alphabetically, allowing you to quickly find the definition for whatever word you needed. This library, on the other hand, had a vast number of books all randomly scattered about. It was hard to guess how many hours, days, or even weeks it might take to locate a specific volume. In that case, wouldn't it be difficult for us to find the information we seek?
The vast majority of literature about Gaunis free and Asura is grouped together by publication date. It would be difficult to gather everything ever written about him, but you would still find more in there than you would in Asura's National Library.
Huh. So apparently this Demon King hadn't copied the books at random, but in order of when they were written, oldest to newest. If that was the case, it wouldn't be impossible to locate what we needed, especially in the case of Gaunis. He was a great king and war hero. There had to be a ton of books about him. Okay, so where is this place?
The Demon Continent, the Hyleth region, deep in the Wraith Forest.
And I assume we're going to get there by
using teleportation circles.
Travel sure become convenient lately thanks to these teleportation circles. It made me nostalgic for the time I spent with Richard and Eris, traveling from the Demon Continent all the way to the Central Continent. Very well. I'll suggest that to Ariel and the others. It would be a little unnatural for me to suggest such an obscure location out of the blue, though. Maybe it would be better to say I prodded Orsted for information, and that was how I knew about the place. I could already picture the opposition to my mention of his name, but that would give me an opportunity to flex my persuasive prowess. Orsted had likely recruited me expecting I would be useful that way. Just as I turned on my heel to leave, he called after me.
Rudeus?
Yes?
If you cannot find your answer even after you have combed through various materials on Gaunis, try this.
He handed me a picture that I could only assume was the cover of a book. It was beautifully drawn. I wondered if he'd done it himself. And this is?
You'll understand once you read it. Of course, if the books you find on Gaunis provide the answer you seek, then you needn't bother with it.
His words, while vague, seemed to contain some hidden meaning. For the moment, I pocketed the picture he'd handed me and left. It was late night by the time I made my way back to the floating fortress.
There was no curfew there, so Aramani led me inside as usual. He warned me that Perugius had already retired for the evening, so I should keep quiet as I traversed the halls.
That means Ariel is probably asleep too. Perhaps I should have gone home instead of rushing back here, but it was too late to regret my decision. I could spend the night here and speak with Ariel about the library labyrinth first. With that in mind, I started toward the guest quarters only to notice something moving in the corner of my vision.
Crap. A roach? Even at this altitude? Guess not even Perugius' spirits can protect against an infestation. Makes sense, considering the rats I saw in the basement.
But then I realized that this thing, whatever it was, stood outside the nearby window. Silver light poured in through the glass, and a beautiful garden spread out beyond it. The moon didn't provide much light, but I squinted and noticed sitting at the table outside. Who would be out there at this hour? Maybe Silvaro was putting in some overtime. Whatever the case, I decided to head out there and find out. Huh! A beautiful sight greeted me when I stepped out of the building. Bathed in the moonlight, the grass glimmered faintly, guiding my path forward. It led to a patch of flowers that were unremarkable during the daytime, but took on the moon's glow at night and shone like a mirage. I could see why Silvaro bragged about this garden at every opportunity. A girl sat at the table where Perugius and Ariel often enjoyed their tea. Since she didn't wear a mask, there was only one person it could be. Well, okay, Nanahoshi hasn't actually been wearing her mask much recently, so I guess there's still technically two possibilities. Nonetheless, the person sat there was a peerless beauty, known locally for her unmatched allure. It was Ariel, in other words. She was spacing out, or more accurately, she seemed almost immobile as she stared out at the fantastical garden. Princess Ariel?
Uh-oh, it's you, Lord Rudeus.
What are you doing out here at this hour?
I couldn't sleep, so I sneaked out here.
Without alerting Sylphie or Luke.
Yes, my apologies. I simply wanted to enjoy the night air a bit by myself.
I wasn't judging her for it, but at the same time she did have people out for her life. She knew that better than anyone. Maybe that was what compelled her to apologize. Well, everyone has moments like that.
A king?
A king is still a human being. So, of course, she went silent. I had heard that kings weren't ever supposed to show weakness, but that merely meant they couldn't expose it, not that they didn't experience it. Everyone had moments of vulnerability where they needed to gather their thoughts. So what were you thinking about? I took a seat by her at the table. Probably she didn't want to be disturbed, but I had something I wanted to talk to her about anyway. While it could wait until tomorrow, it seemed better to tell her as soon as I could.
I was contemplating whether I'm really fit to be king or not.
Definitely not the words I was hoping to hear. Well, you seem like you'd make a splendid king to me.
Royalty are good at putting on a facade to fool other people. It's merely an illusion.
Ah, so it's something inside that's eating you up then?
Ultimately, I'm only going down this path because I couldn't face anyone otherwise. Maybe I was never cut out to be king. Maybe I would have been better off accepting an arranged marriage to whatever noble was deemed best for me and bantering with Luke as an equal as I once used to.
Crap. Crap. She is so down in the dumps that she's headed in an awful direction. If she seriously starts thinking about giving up her bid for the throne, I'm in hot water. Especially since Orsted was already laying plans to help make her king. Those unique circumstances aside, I still had a fairly high opinion of Ariel. She may have been driven out of Asura after losing the political game, but she hadn't given up. She was fighting tooth and nail to strengthen her position and create a solid foundation to pursue her goals. It had taken her 5 or 6 years to get this far. Personally, I would have quit halfway through. No, I'd have thrown up my hands in defeat the moment I was driven out of the country, just like I did when I thought Eris had rejected me. I didn't want Ariel to give up now. I knew that even if she broke on the inside, she would probably put on a brave front and head for Asura Kingdom anyway. But how was she supposed to win if she didn't have ambition behind it? Who would want to support a person who had no life in their eyes? The Ariel my future self wrote about must have been like that. She failed to win Perugius' support and left for Asura anyway, only to be betrayed and killed. That was all speculation, of course. But when push came to shove, her mental state might be the deciding factor. Not that willpower was the be-all and end-all, but when a person was pushed to their breaking point, their mentality could make the difference between victory and defeat. Princess Ariel. I said her name even though I had no real words to offer her. I wasn't planning to be king, and I hadn't known many kings before either, nor could I empathize with what she had been through. All I had seen was the mask she showed to the outside world. Whatever I said would slide off her like water off a duck's back. Lord Orsted has an idea of where we might find a plethora of books on Gonisfree and Asura.
Huh?
Before you decide whether you're really fit for the throne or not, why don't you try looking through those materials and see what you find? Ariel's eyes widened. She stared at me and muttered,
Lord Orsted? And where would we find these books?
in a place called the Library Labyrinth.
Let's go.
Ariel decided before I could finish my sentence, not even a second's hesitation there. You sure wasted no time debating whether to go or not.
I may be feeling weak right now, but I haven't given up yet.
Good to know. She looked fragile as glass at the moment, but she was still a woman with her eyes on the crown. If she didn't have guts, she wouldn't have made it this far. All right then, let's head there. 3 days later, I found myself in a building on the outskirts of Sharia. It was a different cabin from the one where Orsted had taken up residence, and inside was a teleportation circle emitting a dazzling pale light.
So this is the teleportation circle we'll be taking.
After we had spoken, she immediately left to rouse Sylphie and Luke and begin preparations to depart. I hurried back to Orsted so I could update him. He then cleaned up the basement of this building and put the necessary teleportation circle in place. This one was an inert type that required my mana to work, like the type Perugius often made use of.
It's not the first time I've seen one, but I admit, I am a little nervous at the idea of stepping upon it. By the way, I noticed Lord Orsted is absent.
It's his way of showing consideration, since his curse would only be an unnecessary distraction.
Oh, I see. I was hoping to at least introduce myself to him.
If Orsted showed up, the three of them would probably refuse to use the magic circle he'd created. Although his curse seemed not to affect Ariel entirely, there was no telling what effect it would have if she faced it in the flesh.
What a pity.
Was she just fearless, or did she enjoy coming face to face with terrifying things? Either way, I couldn't let her meet Orsted. The worst part of his curse made those who looked upon him lose all rationality. Even Sylphie and Roxy, with their sensibility and knowledge of said curse, could not bring themselves to trust Orsted. It was impossible to know what effect it might have on Ariel. She was fine at the moment, but if she was faced with him in close quarters, she would probably become so terrified that she'd keep her distance, even from me. It would be awesome if Ariel could speak to Orsted as openly as I did, but the risk meant that keeping our distance was the better option. She still found him intimidating, but she also understood she could make use of him. In fact, when I mentioned that it was Orsted who suggested visiting the Library Labyrinth, she hopped on board without second-guessing his intentions. Maybe it was only natural, a drowning man grasping at straws, but Orsted's curse was usually so powerful that most people wouldn't accept his help, even when backed into a corner.
But this circle is something Orsted made, right?
Are you sure it's safe to use this? I don't want to get thrown into a pit of beasts.
Neither trusted Orsted. If Ariel were to deal with him directly, she might become just like them. I had to avoid that at all costs.
Don't speak like that, you two. Lord Rudeus would never lead Sylphie into danger, would he?
Of course. I already used it once, just to be sure. There was nothing unusual about our destination, aside from its smelling of mold and being covered in dust. Granted, I hadn't ventured very far, since the place was supposed to be a labyrinth.
Then, let us be on our way? Or so I would like to say, but first, would you like to introduce them?
I glanced behind me where Eris and Ghislaine stood. When I told the former I would be going to the Library Labyrinth, she lit up at the word labyrinth and asked to tag along. I didn't imagine she'd be of much use hunting down books. And Orsted had assured me that the place wasn't very dangerous, but you never knew on that front. It wouldn't hurt to have some extra fighting power, so with no good reason to refuse Eris, I let her come along.
I had an ulterior motive for dragging Ghislaine along. This was the perfect opportunity to introduce her to Ariel. Although I could have waited until I grew closer to Her Highness, Ariel already thought more highly of me than expected, so I didn't think it would be a problem to speed things up. Plus, she would have a harder time trusting Ghislaine if I waited to introduce them when we were just about to set off for Asura. I thought this labyrinth adventure would be a good opportunity to test the waters.
When I brought up meeting Ariel to Ghislaine and Eris a few days ago, Ghislaine said she didn't know squat about etiquette, so she wasn't sure how to go about introducing herself. Eris, likewise, was anxious about whether her wardrobe would be acceptable for meeting royalty. Ironic, given they normally never said such things. Sylphie had stepped in to reassure them. While sighing to herself, she explained that Princess Ariel wasn't fussy about other people's manners. She also said Eris's clothes were perfectly fine, but if the two of them were concerned, she would be happy to teach them. In the ensuing 3 days before our departure, they had worked hard to prepare themselves.
Eris stepped forward, as if she'd been waiting this whole time for Ariel to notice them both. I put a hand out to stop her.
What?
Hold on a second. I'll introduce you. I promise. Princess Ariel, this is Eris. As I am sure you are aware, she has earned herself the nickname Berserker Sword King. She is accompanying us today as my bodyguard. Okay, now it's your turn.
The name's Eris Greyrat.
Her attitude wasn't the most polite, but Ariel smiled warmly at her nonetheless.
A pleasure to make your acquaintance, Lady Eris. I'm second Princess Ariel Anemoy Asura. I have heard many rumors about you since I was younger.
Huh. Nothing good, I bet.
True. The ones that made it to the capital weren't the most flattering. However, I don't judge people based on the whispers I hear of them. It's all hearsay, after all.
Eris didn't respond.
The fact that you stand beside Lord Rudeus is proof they're not all to be believed. The people he keeps in his company may have their quirks, but none of them are bad people.
Pleased, Eris nodded and crossed her arms. She stood with her legs spread beneath her, as always, completely forgetting etiquette of nobility she was supposed to follow.
That's right. Rudeus is amazing. Good. You understand.
Indeed. Having said that, while we may not be in each other's company long, I look forward to our time together.
Ariel curtsied gracefully. Eris just stared down her nose at the princess and snorted, although she did dip her head slightly. Sylphie cleared her throat, scratching the back of her ear. Ah! Eris gasped quietly, dropping her arms. She pulled a face as she retreated a few steps. I forced an awkward smile as I motioned toward Ghislaine next. And this is Black Wolf Ghislaine Dedoldia. I brought her to introduce to you in hopes she might become one of your bodyguards, Your Highness. Ghislaine stepped forward and took a knee. She narrowed her uncovered eye, staring the princess down.
Ghislaine.
A pleasure to make your acquaintance as well, Lady Ghislaine. I am second Princess Ariel Anemoy Asura. When you were still living in the Fitto region, I
have one question. I was told if I served under you, I'd be able to take revenge for Lord Soros. Is that true?
It was so rude and abrupt that I wondered why she had even bothered practicing etiquette with Sylphie for these past 3 days. Then again, I could see where she was coming from. This wasn't a matter Ghislaine could compromise on.
It is true.
To tell the truth, I had already laid the groundwork to make sure her demands would be met. I had told Sylphie that her aim was to avenge Soros.
If you accompany me to the Asuran Palace, we will find out together who was really responsible, who pulled the strings to take down Lord Soros. No, not we. I will be the one to find out for you. And when I do, please use that blade of yours to see justice done.
For some reason, she shot a meaningful look at Eris when she spoke. What's that supposed to mean? Is she eyeing Eris? Is she actually interested in her? I mean, yeah, Eris does look pretty boyish and badass, but really? No, that couldn't be it. Ghislaine was the one who wanted to take revenge for Soros, but Eris had even greater reason to want his death avenged. Ariel likely thought that Eris was after the same thing and was acting as my bodyguard in name only. I didn't know Eris's thoughts on that, but if she was presented with the opportunity to take down Saros' killers, she would likely do it. I would too, myself. I wouldn't go all out to hunt them down and murder them, but if there was a mastermind behind it all, and they happened to appear in front of me, I would bring them to justice. Saros' death was a result of scheming to reduce the Boreas family's power, since they were one of 4 families that oversaw a vast stretch of kingdom land, while also weakening the first prince's influence. There were so many possible culprits that it was hard to narrow it down.
I will. Well, what should I do then?
For the moment, we'll have you come along as Princess Ariel's bodyguard. Please shield her from the ashes of battle.
Ashes? Are we going up against a fire-breathing monster?
No. What I meant was take down anyone who tries to attack her.
So that's what you mean. Understood. Also, no need for fancy titles from now on. Just call me Ghislaine.
Having said her piece, Ghislaine returned to her place behind me.
Well, it was an honor to meet you both.
Ariel curtsied before us once again. I instinctively bowed in response, which prompted a flustered Eris to follow suit. Ghislaine, on the other hand, merely bobbed her head in acknowledgement. The two were only acquaintances at this point, but surely trust would form between them the longer they worked together. In the same vein, I needed to make sure this first job went smoothly, in order to deepen the trust between Orsted and myself. All right, let's get going. It was time to enter the library labyrinth. Chapter 7, Library Labyrinth. Stepping out of the teleportation circle was like waking up from a dream. No matter how many times I experienced it, I could never get used to it. It reminded me too much of my encounters with the man-god. I glanced at my companions. Almost all of them wore dumbfounded looks on their faces. Even the normally solemn Eris gaped as she looked around. Ghislaine was the only one who seemed unsurprised. Come to think of it, she's the first of the beast folk to ever use a teleportation circle. It was the first time I'd ever seen Ariel utterly gobsmacked. She craned her neck upwards, her mouth half open, and her eyes were unfocused, staring off into the far distance. Wonder if she'd get pissed at me if I stuck my finger in her mouth. Nah, even if she didn't get mad, Sylphie would definitely have a fit.
We've arrived at our destination, haven't we?
Yes. We found ourselves in a room with a stone floor and walls similar to the other Dragon Tribe ruins I had visited. All the other teleportation circles I'd used led to places like this. The only difference was that this place had a proper door, and the room was filled with the smell of ink, parchment, and mold. That assured me that we had definitely arrived at the library labyrinth, even if there were no books in this room. I was told there was no real danger here, but the place is a labyrinth, after all. Let's stay on our guard. The tension returned to Sylphie and Luke's faces. Ghislaine's expression remained unreadable as ever, and Eris looked pretty pumped up.
I'll take the lead,
she declared, stepping toward the corridor that led deeper into the labyrinth. Hold up!
Gah!
I grabbed her coat to stop her advance. She snapped around and glowered at me.
What's your problem?
Eris, there may be traps. Let someone else take the lead. If a fight breaks out, you can take the vanguard, but for now, stay back.
Fine.
She pursed her lips, pouting as she reluctantly retreated behind me. Okay, but the problem is, who should take the lead here? The only people with any experience in a labyrinth are me and... Ghislaine, I guess. Geese and a number of others had told me all I needed to know about the dire consequences of letting Ghislaine lead a group. As one of the beast folk, she might be able to sniff out danger and avoid it, but she had a talent for tripping into every possible trap and running headlong into swarms of monsters. She was definitely not a good pick to lead us. Since I have an eye of foresight, I will take the lead. Eris will follow right behind me. Ghislaine and Luke will protect Princess Ariel from either side, and Sylphie will watch our backs. It seems like the best way to go. What do the rest of you think? I personally thought it was a clever formation, and everyone else seemed to agree, nodding quietly.
I have no objections. We will leave you to take the lead, Lord Rudeus.
With Ariel's seal of approval, we fell in line. I would be scouting the way ahead, but from what Orsted told me, the library labyrinth differed from other labyrinths in that there were almost no traps whatsoever. As long as we avoided breaking one key rule, we should be fine. Speaking of which, I should warn the rest. While we're here, I would ask that you refrain from using fire magic.
Why? Because if you use fire magic in a labyrinth, you'll deplete all the oxygen.
Eris's face scrunched in puzzlement, as if she didn't understand what that last word meant. Sylphie was clearly more knowledgeable in this field, but her guess, while good, was actually off the mark. There is that too, but it's actually because the monsters here will get angry and attack anyone who damages, burns, or steals any of the books. I don't expect we'll have to do battle at all, but if we do, please be careful not to damage any of the tomes.
Those are some strange monsters.
Well, to be more specific, they're actually familiars of the Demon King who lives deep inside this labyrinth. Anyone would be angry if someone damaged their things.
Makes sense. Okay, I understand.
Thankfully, this was one instance where she actually meant it and wasn't simply putting on a brave front. I'm not just talking to you, Eris. I want you to be careful as well. Ghislaine, Luke.
Got it.
What if we have no other choice?
I have no idea how much this Demon King will tolerate. This is my first time here too.
All right.
He reached a hand toward the hilt of his sword, brows still drawn. He wasn't a very skilled swordsman. By average standards, he was all right enough, but he had nowhere near the level of perfect control that Eris and Ghislaine commanded. He probably knew there was a high likelihood he'd hit a book if he started swinging his blade around. If what I've been told is anything to go by, I don't really expect we'll do battle.
I trust you on that, but on the off chance we do have to fight, maybe it would be best if I stay back.
In that case, we'll leave guarding Princess Ariel to you. Luke nodded, at least confident that he could do that much. Anyway, let's get moving. All that said, I cracked the door in front of us open. Oh, wow! I gasped as I stepped out of the door. I couldn't help it. An endless hallway stretched before me, but that wasn't just it. Its walls, 3 meters tall, comprised stone bookcases that continued far into the distance. Books were packed tight on the shelves.
I see. So this is the library labyrinth.
I stepped up to one of the bookcases. The volumes were more like manuscripts, lacking a hardcover binding. In fact, some didn't have a spine and were just sheaves of paper bound together. No, not some. That was the majority of the material on the shelves. Most of them resembled a disorganized cluster of scrap paper and memos more than a collection of organized notes. In this mess, I only spotted one volume that actually had a cover. Its title was Ledger, written in demon god tongue. Based on that, I guessed it contained accounting records for some shop somewhere in the demon continent. I quietly looked to the bookshelf on the opposite wall. It was the same. What good was a bunch of scrap paper like that going to do anyone? It was a mystery to me. At least it fit with the image of a library labyrinth. Even its contents were like a maze.
Rudeus, what's the matter?
Oh, no, it's nothing. Trying to find the book we were looking for was going to be like searching for a needle in a haystack. I wondered if we'd really be able to locate any materials on King Gawny's. Come on, let's keep moving. We walked for quite a while after that. The bookshelves went on forever. At first, all we could see was a hallway that led straight ahead, but it apparently had a slight curve to it. There was a brief gap in the shelves, where the hall branched off in the shape of an H. I decided to keep moving straight forward, leaving a sign behind to mark where we'd been before moving on. We ran into a number of monsters on our way. One was a snail big enough to block half of the corridor. Writhing tentacles grew from its shell. The mere sight sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't until I realized those tentacles were holding countless books that I felt less wary. I had no idea what the creature was called, so I decided to tentatively dub it the Cthulhu snail. We also encountered a black slime creature. From a distance, I couldn't make out any other features other than that it was a slime, so I decided to call it as such for now. Both creatures were grabbing books and drawing them into their respective bodies heading down the hallway. They weren't getting to their destination anytime soon, but it was clear that they had one in mind. They moved with too much purpose to be merely meandering. There were also some knee-high black bipedal ants. They seemed to have their own destination as well, not even sparing us a glance as they went on their way. They had no distinctive characteristics, so for lack of anything better to call them, I decided to refer to them simply as ants. Although the ants spotted us, they didn't appear aggressive, instead disappearing off into the labyrinth. I was so used to monsters attacking indiscriminately that it felt a bit anticlimactic. Eris and Ghislaine kept running off to slay them every time. It was a nightmare trying to stop them. We hadn't encountered any traps yet. At first, we moved through the halls with great caution, but after an hour of nothing, it seemed silly to continue walking on eggshells. I was pleased that this meant Orsted's information was accurate. He hadn't tried to deceive us. At this rate, I was actually going to start trusting him. Then again, I already had experience with a certain party who tried to gain my trust before stabbing me in the back. I won't name any names, but let's just say their name starts with M and rhymes with Zod. Ah, it's a dead end. It took an hour of walking to finally find one. We kept our guard up the whole time, scanning the shelves as we went, but even at that slow pace, we probably still traveled about 4 kilometers. The bend of the hall was gentle enough that I didn't think we'd completed a circuit around the labyrinth yet. At any rate, this hallway didn't have anything on Kinganis. The volumes covered a mishmash of subjects and languages, but one thing they had in common was their publication date. They were all put out around the end of the Second Great Human-Demon War, which was about 300 years ago. Let's retrace our steps to where the path last split off. The aforementioned area split off in the shape of an H, with 2 paths leading inward and 2 leading outward. Guess the closest would be one of the outward-facing hallways.
Hey, Rudy, why don't we try going inward first?
Oh? Why inward?
I had a peek, and it looks like the hallways leading out contain older volumes, while the ones leading in appear to be more recent.
If that was true, then going inward would lead us to the years of Gani's reign, those following Laplace's war. All right, I said. In that case, let's retrace our steps a little further to the hallway turning inward then. Observant as ever, Sylphie. I should have known you'd have a keen eye for this. We walked again for a while. As Sylphie noted, the further in we went, the more recent the books. At the same time, the bend of the hallway became far more noticeable. This also meant the corridors themselves were much shorter than they had been. We were getting closer to the center of the circle. I wondered what we'd find in the middle. Since this was a labyrinth, maybe the master of the place, its guardian. Orsted said the books were created by a book-loving demon, but perhaps that wasn't all. Maybe something else lived here too. Considering my memories of the teleportation labyrinth, I didn't want to fight if I didn't have to. Well, Laplace's war started about 400 years ago. We shouldn't have to go all the way to the center to find that section, I reminded myself, trying to get a handle on my anxiety.
This place is kind of boring.
Ah, this brings back memories. I had seen Eris get bored before. It was better to warn her against trying anything funny simply because she wasn't being entertained. Eris, I realize you're not having fun, but if you try anything...
I know.
Eris suddenly pulled her sword from its sheath. A split second later, Ghislaine also had hers out. How many?